Okay, the red light's on.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular session of the Milwaukee Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website at www.milwaukeeoregon.gov. The easiest way to locate them is to navigate to the community calendar where tonight's meetings page is located. If you've not reviewed the agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process that we will be following. This will be our first hybrid meeting, meaning that there will be opportunities for public participation online, over the phone, and in person at City Hall. If you wish to provide public comment remotely, please log into the Zoom meeting or call into the meeting. Instructions for logging in and calling in are located on the meeting page on the city's website. In order to be included in the meeting record, public comments must be received during the applicable portion of the meeting. That is, general comments must be made during the open audience participation portion of the meeting, and comments on specific public hearings or work sessions must be made before the close of the public meeting portion of the agenda item. So the one agenda item on tonight is the 32nd Avenue mixed-use building. So if you're interested in speaking about that, hold on. We'll have a chance to hear from everyone, but we'll ask for general comments not related to agenda items first. To testify in person, we ask that people pre-register by sending an email to planning@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Staff will now let us know how many have pre-registered.
We have six. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 people pre-registered to testify in person.
In person, okay?
Yes.
Okay. If there's anyone who has come to City Hall to testify and did not pre-register, please fill out a yellow testimony card and give it to the officer of the planning staff. I think that we've got everyone who has come to the City Hall. So
correct.
The number remains at 6.
Chair Matthew, there are 27 attendees listed right now on our, we have 14 panelists and 27 attendees other than the panelists, and many of those will want to speak. And I see that 2 of them have their hands up now, but I know both of them are want to speak on the topic, on the proposal.
Yeah, we were expecting a good bit of public input on the agenda item, so we will get to that, and we will give everyone an opportunity who wants to speak, a chance to speak. So I have a couple of announcements to make before we get started, and the first one is a tough announcement because I have to announce that Commissioner Burns is leaving the Planning Commission. He is moving out of Milwaukee. We don't understand why anyone would want to move away from Milwaukee, but be that as it may, we wish him well, and we really want to thank him for his reasoned, steady contributions to the Planning Commission. So best of luck, Commissioner Burns, to you and your family.
Thank you, Chair Massey. Leaving Milwaukee is not an easy decision, and I will miss the community, and I hope to be back one day.
Good, good. We will miss you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome our newest commissioner, Amy Ert. Amy, would you like to just tell the commissioners a little about yourself?
Hi, I was born and raised in Clackamas and spent my whole life here and moved to Milwaukee, I think like 8 years ago, and maybe 5 years ago bought the house. Don't quote me on dates. But yeah, I think Milwaukee is the best place to live in the entire world. So I'm a fan.
Very good. Thank you. We look forward to working with you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Sure. Are there any informational items from the city staff?
The comprehensive plan, the council will be deliberating on all of the testimony that's been received on the comprehensive plan next Tuesday, June 30th. It's a special meeting, and hopefully, if they get through everything, their deliberations, and give us some direction to make corrections, that would come back. That it would come back to them in July for adoption. But as of midnight tonight, I think testimony closes. So that's what I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Egner. This is an opportunity for the audience to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. So if you wish to comment on items that's not on the agenda, there will be, if you wish to comment on an item that is on agenda, we'll have time to comment that after the staff presentation. But if there's anyone who wants to comment on an item that's not on tonight's agenda, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom to indicate you wish to make a comment. We'll also check with audience members who have called into Zoom meeting by phone. Before you testify, please remember to state your name and address for the record. For again, this is not for the 32nd Avenue multi-use agenda item.
So we have two people that have their hands raised. I have the suspicion that it's for the hearing, though, and not a regular public
Why don't we
comment,
give
but
them
I'm
a
not
chance
sure.
to just tell us whether it's for the agenda item or not.
Okay. I'm going to allow Matt Rinker. It looks like he's the only one with the hand raised now, just in case. So
Yeah.
you should be unmuted.
I wish to speak to the 32nd multi-use.
No problem.
We'll get back to you on that, Matt. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. We will now move on to tonight's public hearing. We'll follow the basic format that's listed on the agenda, including the staff report presentations, testimony, and Planning Commission deliberation. Tonight's agenda item is the 32nd Avenue mixed-use building. The public hearing on agenda item 5.1 is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to consider application VR-2019-013. The applicant is requesting approval of a proposed mixed-use building at 9391 Southeast 32nd Avenue. The applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the relevant sections of the City of Milwaukee zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinances, and comprehensive plan or applicable municipal code provisions, and that the proposal conforms with all cities' applicable criteria. I would now ask the staff to cite the code sections where the criteria can be found.
Milwaukee Municipal Code, Title 12, Section 16, Access Management. Title 19, Section 303, Commercial Mixed-Use Zones. Title 19, 505.7, Non-Residential Development. Title 19.600, Off-Street Parking and Loading. Title 19.700, Public Facility Improvements. And Title 19.911, Variances.
Thank you. All testimony and evidence tonight must be directed toward the applicable substantive criteria. Failure to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party withstanding may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission of the City Council. Persons withstanding are those who submit written comments or who testify during the meeting. At this point, I need to talk to the Planning Commission and ask if there's any members of the Planning Commission who wish to abstain from this hearing.
No.
No.
No from?
No.
Okay. I've heard from all the commissioners in attendance that there's no abstention request. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? No.
No.
Okay. All the commissioners have responded no potential conflicts of interest. Does any member of the Planning Commission wish to report on any ex parte contacts?
No.
No.
No. No. All commissioners have responded negatively. Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to the hearing please raise their hand just in their screen? Okay. I see that all commissioners have visited the site. Did any of the commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application? No.
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 All the commissioners have responded no. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission? We'll let those on Zoom respond, give them a moment if they want to challenge any of the commissioners.
To do that, you would want to raise your hand.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, good point. If you want to challenge the participation of any of the planning commissioners, please raise your hand. Do we see any raised hands in the city hall or on Zoom?
We have one raised hand, so I'll allow them to talk with Chris Roberts.
Okay.
1 second here. Okay, you are open to be talking.
Thank you. Just wanted to check. Commissioner Ert seemed a little hesitant that she had visited the site. I wanted to make sure that she had.
Oh, I just was not clear on, I was just appointed and I haven't visited the site since I was appointed, but I actually lived right off of that street for 4 years and go to that community often. So I know the businesses in the area. So yes, I've been there and seen it. And I can go visit it again. And I was trying to think the last time that I think I just walked that area like a week ago, but it wasn't specifically for this. Does that help clarify?
It does clarify. Thank you.
Okay.
Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter? Please raise your hand if you do so. No raised hands, Mary? Okay. We will now proceed with the staff report presentation, followed by testimony from interested parties.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen so we can see the PowerPoint presentation. All right. May I confirm that everyone can see that? Sorry. All right, great, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Vera Colea, Senior Planner here and presenting with Dalton Vauden, who's one of our associate engineers, and presenting the staff report for Master File VR 2019-013. The site is located at 9391 Southeast 32nd Avenue. It's at the corner of 32nd Ave and Olson Street. The site is about a quarter acre, 0.25 acres, and is currently vacant. The property was the site of the former Stein Oil Company and the Luther Davis Auto Repair Shop. The businesses were housed in a structure which occupied the site from about 1950 until it was recently demolished in preparation for redevelopment. Surrounding area consists of single-family homes as well as some commercial properties directly east and south of the subject property, including a convenience store, cafe and restaurant, and a dog grooming business. There's a commercial industrial property located about 250 feet north at the corner of 32nd Ave and Malcolm Street. The zoning, as you can see here in purple, and then you have the site here outlined in red, is the neighborhood mixed use zone, the NMU. It was rezoned from limited commercial, or the CL zone, in 2015 as part of the Moving Forward Milwaukee project. The CL zone permitted a variety of commercial uses by right, as does the NMU. It permitted multifamily development as a conditional use, as does the NMU. And it also had a maximum building height of 45 feet or 3 stories. So quite a few things remained the same when the rezoning to the NMU occurred in 2015. Again, the NMU allows mixed-use buildings by right, although several of the submitted comments included criticism of the small size of the proposed retail spaces. Staff just wants to note that the code does not prescribe a minimum size for the commercial spaces, and the size of the proposed commercial spaces is not a criterion for review of the proposal per the code. Valerie Hunter is the applicant and the current owner of the property, is proposing a 4-story mixed-use building comprised of 3 ground floor commercial tenant spaces. I believe one of them is intended to be an office for the building. but I will let the applicant certainly speak to that. The commercial spaces will face 32nd Avenue. There are 21 dwelling units proposed, 20 one-bedroom units, and then one 5-bedroom unit on the 4th floor. The proposal also includes 17 covered parking spaces, which would be accessed from Olson Street. The proposal requires a variety of land use approvals. The first is a height variance to allow 4 stories and a 48-foot measured height for the building. Again, the NMU allows 3 stories or 45 feet for the building height. They are asking for a variance from the access width. That's the driveway where it enters the parking area. They have proposed a 22-foot wide driveway rather than the minimum of 24 feet. The proposal is asking for a modification to the minimum off-street parking required for the development. They're asking for 17 off-street parking spaces rather than the minimum of 21 off-street parking spaces. And then they are also required to go through a development review process, and that is to confirm that the building is designed per the non-residential development standards, setbacks, et cetera, for the zone. As part of that development review, we are reviewing a modification through Title 12, which is one of the engineering sections of the code, to allow modification to the access spacing standard, and that from the driveway into the parking area. Oh no, it did. Oh shoot. Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Where did I stop talking? Perfect. Okay, great. So they're asking for a modification to the access spacing standard. The driveway that accesses the building, the parking, is less than 100 feet from the intersection with 32nd Avenue. So they need a modification to that spacing standard. Okay. This slide summarizes the approval criteria that the development needs, or that the project needs to meet. This is for the parking modification as well as the Type 3 variances. So the key issues that staff has identified stem from these approval criteria for the parking modification and the variances. Generally, the criteria involve identification of impacts to surrounding properties and proposed mitigation. For the requested parking modification, the code requires that the approval find that the reduction in the off-street parking will not adversely affect available on-street parking, and that there's available transit or other special circumstances that would reduce the expected vehicle use for users of the site. The Type 3 variances require determination that the variance is both reasonable and appropriate, and it talks about asking for an alternatives analysis that has provided an analysis of the impacts and the benefits as compared to the baseline code requirements. So the key issues that staff has identified relate to the variances. Do they result in any negative impacts? Have they been mitigated? Is the requested reduction in the required off-street parking reasonable? And will it result, or would it result in significant neighborhood impacts? And does the transportation impact study, which the applicant was required to prepare, does it adequately address potential traffic impacts resulting from the project, and have any identified impacts been mitigated? So key issue 1A for the variances is the height variance. The maximum building height in the NMU zone is 45 feet or 3 stories, whichever is less. The variance request is to allow a 4-story building that would be 48 feet tall as measured per the building code or per the zoning code. The actual building height would be 51 feet 1 inch. The red line that's shown here on these slides show where approximately where the 45-foot maximum height would be on the proposed building. The proposed building meets the maximum height standard at the top of the 3rd floor. So the additional height allows the building to have a 4th story, which would have 1 large dwelling unit. The proposed building abuts residential properties on the north and the west sides. The abutting property to the north is a 1-story house. The abutting property to the west is a 2-story house. And again, these images represent those facades specifically that directly abut adjacent residential. Again, type 3 variances require that the commission find that the proposal meets the criteria in 19.911. The applicant has chosen to address the discretionary relief criteria, which means that an alternative is to be prepared and the variance must be found to be reasonable and appropriate. Many comments have been submitted expressing concern about the scale of the proposed building, particularly in relation to the adjacent 1- and 2-story residences, especially since there are no minimum setbacks in the NMU zone. Staff notes that unlike the general mixed-use zone, or the GMU, which is down in the central Milwaukee area, a height bonus is not available in the NMU. This decision was made during the NMU code amendment process and reflects the neighborhood scale development that was intended for the area. The question then for the commission is, what does the proposal provide that responds to the concerns that have been voiced by the residents and by the commenters on the project? While the 4th floor is designed for only one large dwelling unit, can the commission find that the variance is reasonable and appropriate given the impacts on neighboring properties and the limited public benefits provided as identified in the variance approval criteria? All right, key issue 1B has to do with the variance for the access way. I'm going to ask Dalton Vauden from the engineering department to speak to this particular variance request.
Good evening. The Milwaukee Municipal Code section 12.16.040 governs sizes of accessways, and for multifamily dwellings, as well as for select multifamily dwellings, as well as for off-street car parks with more than 16 spaces, has a minimum driveway width of 24 feet and a maximum of 30 feet. So the applicant has a slightly undersized driveway, and then the distance from intersection allowed is 100 feet unless a access study is prepared and submitted. And so as proposed, 51 feet can be acceptable. A larger transportation impact study was conducted due to the size of the development, and our traffic consultant did not find an issue with the driveway spacing. Having a slightly narrower driveway does allow a little bit more spacing than would have been with the full 24 feet. There may be the trade-off is there might be slightly more queuing, as if there's a vehicle waiting to come out and a vehicle headed into the car park, that there is now narrower space to navigate. This is only 2 feet difference. There isn't a solid reason. Our consultant did not find a reason to deny this. So we have no objections.
Right. All right, thank you, Dalton. Key issue number 2 has to do with the parking reduction that's been requested. The applicant's proposing a reduction in the minimum required off-street parking spaces for the commercial to a total of 17 off-street parking spaces. The proposal does include 5 additional on-street parking spaces to be developed as part of the project, and that's as a result of the dedication of frontage on 32nd Avenue. The proposed 1,346 square feet of commercial space would require 5 off-street parking spaces, and the proposed frontage improvements include that dedication to create additional right-of-way for those additional on-street spaces on 32nd Avenue. So those spaces accommodate the minimum required spaces and do help to alleviate the pressure on the surrounding neighborhood for on-street parking. The residents of the proposed development would be able to use public transit or bicycles as alternatives to personal vehicles. The number 75 TriMet bus route runs on a 15-minute headway on 32nd Ave, which connects downtown Milwaukee to St. John's, using Cesar Chavez Boulevard as a key route through Portland. The bus route connects to multiple other bus routes and to 2 MAX stations in Northeast Portland. So it is conceivable that residents of the apartments would not need to own their own vehicles to access shopping, work, or other destinations. However, many comments were submitted expressing concern about the reduction in parking on the site, even with the on-street parking spaces. The surrounding neighborhood streets currently provide parking for the adjacent commercial site to the south, which is where the Milwaukee Cafe is located, because that development does not have its own off-street parking. The applicant did not submit any information about mitigation for the reduction in spaces, such as a car share or e-bike opportunities to reduce the need for residents to own their own vehicle. Those have been found to be pretty typical amenities in multifamily buildings with very little off-street parking. The applicant did not respond to the approval criterion regarding impacts to existing on-street parking. Many of the public comments received state that on-street parking is minimal in this area and that on-street spaces in the neighborhood are few. However, a parking utilization study was not provided by the applicant to confirm any of those statements or to really analyze the key times of day when on-street parking is difficult to obtain. One possibility would be that if the commercial spaces were unused at night, the commercial parking spaces there on 32nd were unused at night, residents could use those spaces in off hours. But again, the question really is about, are there going to be adverse impacts on available on-street parking due to the reduction that is being requested? Okay. And then key issue number 3 has to do with the transportation impact study that was required of the applicant. And again, I'll have Dalton chime in on the TIS findings and recommendations.
Thank you, Vera. So in conjunction with the city engineer, as well as with DKS, our traffic consultant, one of the difficulties of the current situation is the reduced vehicles on the road due to the current pandemic. But it was found acceptable to estimate with a recent study, assuming a 2% annual increase. And so the TIS found that new trips were not likely to result in a great increase to adjacent intersections. There was one piece missing from what our consultant prepared as a checklist for the applicant to submit with their forming their traffic impact study, and that was they did not provide daily new trips generated by the site development. So it was largely found to be an acceptable TIS with that missing daily new trips generated not being acceptable.
Good to go? Okay. Great. Thank you, Dalton. So that concludes the discussion about the key issues that staff identified. Notice of the proposal was given to engineering, building, and public works departments of the city, Clackamas County, city of Milwaukee, or city of Portland, TriMet, Metro, North Clackamas School District, Northwest Natural, and the Ardenwald Neighborhood District Association, as well as all properties within 300 feet. Numerous individuals submitted comments as late as, I think, after 5 today that we've all received in opposition to the project for reasons related to the requested reduction of parking, lack of available parking in the neighborhood, the height of the building, its incompatibility with surrounding development, and the increase in traffic that will result. Many of the comments, if I may summarize, did express support for the redevelopment of the site to enhance the neighborhood, but believe that the proposal should not be approved as submitted. All of the comments that were received as of the date of the staff report were included as attachment 2 with the staff report to the commission. And I have been forwarding comments to the commission and the applicant for most of the day today. We received a significant number of comments starting last night from the weekend and then again into this evening as well. Staff recommendations at this point we're asking for a council or a commission to provide direction to staff regarding findings or potential conditions of approval for a decision if that's where you'd like to go. And we ask that you continue the hearing to July 14th so that staff could prepare those findings. But we are not prepared to make a recommendation to the commission tonight. We are really looking for direction from you as to which way you'd like to go, and certainly with the amount of public comment on the project, that's likely to factor into your decision as well. Your decision-making options tonight are you could approve the application, but we would need to develop findings and conditions of approval tonight. You could deny the application upon finding that it does not meet the approval criteria. Again, we will need to create those findings to do that. Or you could continue the hearing. July 14th is the date that we are asking that it could be continued to. The 120-day deadline for the application that includes any appeals and so on is September 8th. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, commissioners, do you have any clarifying questions for the city staff? Yes, Commissioner Hamer.
So Vera, for everybody that's listening in the audience and for everybody that is maybe new to the commission, could you explain, we can deny any sort of variance just because they're asking for a variance, correct?
Specific approval criteria for the variances. So a denial would need to find that they don't meet one or more of the approval criteria for the variance.
Okay, so that was the general question. I have a couple more. So I was looking, and it's very easy to find online, all of our municipal codes in the city. And I was trying to find rules for compact, what you call compact parking, which is generally a smaller space. I could not find any. Do any of those exist?
Our code requires a minimum parking space size of 9 feet by 18 feet. We do not have a compact parking space standard in our code. We require all the parking spaces to be non-compact spaces, I guess.
Okay. And then my other question is that does the NMU, when it has mixed use above, does it actually state how many retail units does it have to be? Does there have to be 1, 2, 3, 500?
Sorry to interrupt. No, the code does not prescribe a percentage or a size or a number of the commercial versus the resident.
I think you went dead. There you go. You're
Sorry.
good.
It merely requires that there be a combination of retail and or size or percentage in the code. No.
Okay. That was it, Chairman asking.
Any other clarifying questions from any of the commissioners? So, Vera, I have one question. So, I'm interested by the statement that there's 5 additional on-street parking spots being provided. I guess my question is, don't those parking spots already exist?
They do not. I'll ask Dalton to jump in on this as well. But the project is providing a 10-foot dedication. So they're expanding the right-of-way width of 32nd Avenue in front of the building to provide for those parking spaces. So there will be parallel parking spaces in front of the proposed development. Those do not exist now. There are parallel parking spaces in front of the Milwaukee Cafe, but it's sort of like a bump out so that there's additional width right there for those parking spaces. But along 32nd Avenue, there are not on-street parking spaces in the right-of-way.
So you cannot park along 32nd Street in front of that property now?
Correct.
Thank you.
Well,
I might just add that the previous development, basically it was just one large access drive in there. There's no curbing through there that would define where one would park. It is likely if you attempted to park there, you're either going to be on private property or you're going to be out in the travel lane somewhere.
Thank you.
I have a question, Chair Macy.
Go ahead.
I would like a little bit more discussion or an understanding about the TIS and how the report is, how it is that the impact study is deemed complete. Given I see here that the COVID-19 situation, there were some there's maybe some ways that they were allowed to make different calculations. I would like to hear a little bit more about that.
Thank you for your question. So we hire DKS as our traffic consultant that deals with all of our land use TIS reports. They generate a checklist of requirements that forms the scope of what the applicant must submit in their TIS, and so they're as well as many cities in the area are facing this issue of how do we continue to do meaningful traffic studies as well as and allow land use to go forward, as well as dealing with these COVID restrictions and the artificially low vehicle trips that we're seeing right now, and so they're typically for future impacts, because there's typically the baseline is grabbed from recent traffic counts, typically done right before applicants submit or when applicants submit, and then a growth percentages is provided to see that future demand is still met. And so that we don't have intersections that go into failing. And so in this situation, instead of using counts that were from this year, counts were used from 2018. And so similar approach, but just the data is 2 years older than typical. Steve, do you want to add more to that?
Yeah, that's the 2% growth to typical standard used by traffic consultants throughout the nation. It tends to hold pretty true to what we've actually seen, at least in my experience with dealing with private development.
And can the TIS report included 30-second?
Yeah.
Okay, no further comments.
Any other questions from the commissioners for the staff? So I know that we've received additional correspondence since the meeting packet was published. I know you've kind of talked about this, but could we briefly summarize maybe how many we received and also specifically talk about the petition, I think, which is one of the more significant recent additions?
Okay, so we've received, since the packet went out, I can count. I can tell you that of all of the correspondence that we've received, there was one that was in support of the project. I can kind of show you all the paper of all the printed out correspondence. But they are from residents in the neighborhood. Certainly, generally, what I'm of rezoning of 32nd Avenue, but there is significant opposition to the 4-story building and significant opposition to reduction in the on-street parking that's being provided. I'm happy to go over the list of all of the folks that sent in correspondence. We also made a PDF of all of these comments available, and they were posted on the application webpage, I think at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So folks would be able to review that as well. We also I think it was a little bit after 5 today. And if you'll bear with me, I'm going to go over to my emails to take a look at that because the petition, as you mentioned, Chair, hold on. Let's see. A petition was circulated. I believe it was on change.org in 49 signatures. It was dated today. Ronell Coburn, who's a resident of Ardenwald and I believe is one of the organizers or one of the folks from Milwaukee RIP, submitted an online petition with 49 citizen signatures opposing the variances requested for the development at the corner of 32nd and Olson. She requested that all signatories requested the petition be placed into the public record and distributed to the Planning Commission. And then there's a list of all of the folks that have signed on to this petition. It included some information about, what was being proposed, what the code allows, and then the signatures or the online signatures of the 49 folks that oppose the variances that are requested on the project. I'm happy to provide more detail about all these if you'd like. I just wanted to know kind of how much do you want me to present?
That's good for now. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for Vera on these latest submissions? I know it's been kind of a challenge to keep up with these. I was reading these things up until the meeting. Yes, Commissioner Hamer.
Mine is semi-technical. I guess the question is that if we decide that we need still a little bit more time to review them before the next hearing date, if we decide to continue the hearing, does that mean we need to keep public comment open?
I can take that. And maybe Denny could chime in as well. I think that if the hearing is continued and you will continue to review the comments, I think the comment period or the public hearing itself would need to either you could close and then reopen it, or keep it open in that respect. Denny, do I have that right?
You're muted, Denny.
Yep, there he goes.
Yeah, the options are you can continue it to take additional testimony if you want. You can also close the hearing tonight, subject to perhaps a request that the written testimony be left open for 7 days. Or you have the choice of leaving it open for additional oral testimony. It's up to you before the end of the meeting. I need to make a request of all the attendees and panelists. Please do not use the chat function to make comments on the application or to communicate among yourselves or to ask questions or make comments about the proposal. The chat function should only be used to let staff know that you're having a technical problem or something and we can try to help you. We're not using the chat as a means to communicate with the Planning Commission or to provide evidence to the Planning Commission as part of their decision-making process. That note's been made a couple times by Mary in the chat. I've also made it now, and now I've announced it. But please stop using it to make comments about the application. Okay? Thanks.
Yeah, let me just echo that. We need for all of the testimony to be in a public forum, and that's why we really don't want the chat function to be used as a function to discuss the merits of the proposal, because we want all of that to be out front in public.
I guess that's also a reminder for the commission to try to ignore the chat function, and please let staff monitor that.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on. I will now recognize the applicant and their representative, followed by members of the public who will present testimony in person, followed by persons on Zoom. So let's go ahead and turn it over to the applicant at this point.
I'll go ahead and do that here really quickly. So I believe it was Mildred. So let me move you over to panelist. John. And I believe Valerie as well. Yeah. Applicants, let me know if there's anyone else that needs to be moved over. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Okay, because I can't hear you anymore for some reason.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, okay. So Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mildred White with BAM Architecture. My home address is 731 Northeast 69th Avenue, Portland, Oregon, 97213. And Valerie Hunter, who's a property owner, is with us as well. And she's going to speak after I just chat with you a little bit about the project. I'm going to see if I can do the share screen so I can pull up this PDF for you. Can you see that? Let's see.
Mildred, are we supposed to see each other or no?
I was trying to show you the PDF document.
Could you talk to me now? Oh, you are? Okay.
You have your camera turned on, Mildred?
I'm sorry?
You have your camera turned on? I mean, it could be that your video is off so that we can't get to your image.
Okay, how about that?
We can see you now. Now let's try to share
Can you guys see now?
Try sharing your image.
Oh, there we go. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Now, there it is. That worked.
Okay, perfect. Now, I did send this document just around 5, hoping that you would have that so you could refer to it. But if not, that's fine. I was going to walk you through it. So this is the project that we're discussing. This is a site, kind of, if you were to cut a view through Olson Street. So this is 32nd Avenue. This is the property line for the project. And then this is the residence behind the property or on the side to the west. And this is the existing little market.
Can you zoom in, please?
Did we send this out, Mildred?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that a little better? So this is to show you, we are asking for the height variance, and Vera did show you the diagram. So the 35.6 is the height of the building where it's adjacent to the west property. And then we have a large deck, which you have the drawings for that. It's on the 4th floor. So this top story is set back 19.6 feet. And then we have it recessed on the 4th floor on 32nd as well. So this shows you what's proposed and then the buildings that are there right now. This next slide is to show you what is allowed outright per code, which is to build to the 0 property line and to build to 45 feet. So this box represents what is allowed. And then the lighter line behind it represents what we are proposing. So you can see how we have tried to mitigate the additional height, which is mostly the gable that we feel lends itself to a more residential on the top. And then how we have notched it out here where we could normally be going up this tall adjacent to this property. This next slide is to show you, again, this is what we could build out. And this is by code what the property behind us can build out. It is actually zoned commercial, and it is zoned to allow a building of this height and to a 0 property line. And it's same with the existing stores property. So if we were looking at what could be, if they walked in with a permit or walked in with an application, what they could be building. This is a line of sight study from, again, this is the west property line. So if you were to look at, if we built it to the 45 feet that's allowed on this top story, a person looking out their window, this is to show you their line of sight into the backyard. This is without a variance, just what's allowed. This is to show you where we notched it back on the 4th floor. Somebody at the deck, which if you see the drawings, we have planters surrounding it and their line of sight, which would see the roof of the existing building. And this is a person inside that top single family unit on the top floor. And their line of sight is, because this is a parapet instead of like a clear rail, that it's actually above the building. We move to the next slide. This is if you're kind of doing the same section cut view. It's a north-south view along 32nd Avenue. So this is, again, the proposed building. The property lines, you can see a smaller setback on the 4th floor where Olson Street is. And this is that existing Milwaukee Cafe. This is where we have a larger setback from the property line, and then a deep recessed 4th floor. And this is the existing house. You look at the next slide, this is again showing, this is the outline of what's allowed by code without a variance. So if we were to put an application for a 45-story unit that is allowed by code for the city right now, this is where we could build to the height and setback relative to this house. This is the setback, what we're proposing. And if you look at the next screen, this is what's allowed at the cafe, at our site, at the existing adjacent site, and the existing site, and on actually along 32nd Avenue. And this is a line of sight study. So again, this is at the property line per code. Somebody could look down and see a lot into this yard. This is somebody at the deck and somebody at the closest wall. There's actually a large, some of the building is back this far, and you can see where the line of sight is from inside. The proposed 4th floor is over, this is the top of the guardrail because we've built it up 30 inches. It's a solid parapet. So you can see above it, the line of sight is above the roof of the house. This is a shadow study of what is allowed outright, the 45-foot box. Now, granted, there is a 15% requirement for landscape on the site. It doesn't require it to be on these inner property lines. It could be along the street, should we choose. That's up to the applicant. So it could not be built out entirely as shown, but it could be up against these property lines as shown. So I just want to be upfront on that. But this shows you what the shadow line would be if we built it to code, overlaid on the existing adjacent property to the north.
You have the shadow line of what we did?
Yeah, that's coming up. So again, this is, June 21st at 9 a.m. This is June 21st at 3 p.m. and you can see the shadow line of what's allowed and the shadow that throws. Then if you overlay it with some other studies, this is what we're proposing. This is the actual shadow line. This red line represents what it would be at that same exact time of day if we built the 45-foot building that is allowed outright versus the recessed building that we're proposing. This is another time of the day, June 21st at noon. This is the same comparison of study of what we're allowing. This is where the shadow line is. And the red shows the increased shadow line if we were to build it outright per code without the variance. If we decided to not recess the top floor, if we were to build it per code. Not saying that we would, that's just what's allowed outright. This, again, is another study, June 21st at 3 p.m. You can see how it's what we're proposing because of this deep setback. Doesn't get on the property line, it's all on the street. This is where it would be if we were to build it per code. This is a kind of a quick study showing, I'm sorry? This is a quick study showing a section of the building. So you can see parking, commercial, it's apartments, and then the single family up on the top. And you can see how the building has been stepped in response. This is on this side, this is the west. This side is 32nd Avenue. With 21 total residential units, there's 20 one-bedroom units, and then the single family on the top for a total of 25 bedrooms in the building. This is if you were to maximize and you were parking in commercial with apartments at 45 feet, doing a loft scenario, you'd actually have additional bedrooms. You could have 40 bedrooms without having to increase the parking count. The parking count is based on the size of the units. We had smaller units. If we did all the units up towards the 790 to 800, this is how many bedrooms we could have without having to increase the parking count. So just comparing what we're proposing to if it's maximized. And this is just an example of a loft idea where you could have a bedroom under there and then a sleeping loft. And that's my wrap up for the introduction kind of to how we approached the design and the project. And if Valerie wants to add on to that, I don't know if she's got access right now.
Ms. Hunter, would you like to testify?
Sure. Just to start it off, yeah. Couple things. So obviously, as we started this off, me and Mildred sat down and we really wanted, as a mother that has her children, has went to school in Milwaukee for the, they're 9 years old now. They've been going since they are 3. I am a mother in Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee, and I'm here to be a part of Milwaukee. We go to St. John the Baptist Church. And can you guys hear me? Oh yeah, okay, good. So just to let everybody know like how important and like how imperative that the city of Milwaukee and like Milwaukee stays the same. We love Milwaukee. We don't go to our own market, we actually go to Milwaukee market. One of my employees actually runs the whole farmers market. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of background about us and what we're about and how important it is that we're part of this. A couple of things as we move into this. Obviously, as a developer, I needed to be profitable. But as a developer, I've never put myself on top of a building before. And this is the first situation. And the only reason why is I love Milwaukee and I love Clackamas County. So as you look into this and you see that the penthouse is on top, it's because we want to be there, but I also want to make sure that nothing goes wrong with my building as we continue forward. Aesthetically, how is the grounds kept? How is everything looking? Kind of why we go into the whole, brick and stuff. We can move forward with that and talk about that later. But a couple things. When we look into, as you guys make decisions on commercial space and all that, obviously right now we can approve the first story, the second story, and the third story. And we can do it as we are right now. I don't want to do that. I want to do it as where I can live on top and I can be a part of this community and I can make sure that it flourishes and I don't have any tenants that are issues. But I also give my tenants an opportunity to have their TriMat pass, their bus pass, and we can get rid of the cars. We can move forward and really actually add to the community and be a part of the community. So that's all I really want to say at this point, other than Mildred did a great job really kind of explaining to you guys the height difference and what is approved and what's not approved. Like, we're going for a 3-foot difference right now. We're not, If you guys don't want to approve it, it's perfectly fine. I'll take away that part and we'll just add to the residential part. But then you don't have that owner on top of it who's looking down and making sure everything's taken care of at all times. But we just want to be a part of your community. We don't want this to be like an issue. We want you to understand, we understand the parking issues. We understand what feelings that you have coming into this, and we want to be a part of the discussion. If COVID didn't hit us, prior to COVID, I had actually submitted our drawings over to the neighborhood association. And I was actually going to go to the neighborhood association and sit down with them and start talking about like what are their concerns and stuff. And that's what's been kind of, I would say like frustrating for myself and I'm sure for them is like with COVID hitting, we haven't been able to sit down and say, okay, how does this really imply to our zoning? How does this imply to our neighborhood, our coffee shop next door? Like everything, like as we start to sit down and think about it, I don't want large commercial spaces. I want micro, because micro is what's going to make those commercial owners successful. Because if a lot of people haven't noticed in this day and age right now, larger commercial spaces are not being able to handle the overhead that's coming at them. Where if you have a small commercial space, you're able to handle the overhead and allow your employees to come in and work, because otherwise it is a owner-based situation. And a reason why I set up for the small commercial spaces. Obviously, the property management will handle one small space, and then the other two spaces, I'm really working with some other tenants to hopefully take on, but nothing's going to be at a situation where they, in this day and age, and as you guys can see kind of with the city, people are not wanting to handle a larger commercial space. So I just wanted to throw that out. I love Milwaukee. I am Milwaukee. So before anybody says I'm not Milwaukee, we've been there for a long time. We've been associated with it. We've sold houses in it, and we want only the best for it. So I just want to let you know that.
Thank you. Any more testimony from the applicants or their representatives?
Yes, this is John Replinger. I'm the traffic engineer for the applicant from Clemo and Associates. And I want to thank Steve and Dalton and Vera for a good explanation of what we did. I am absolutely confident that using the 2018 traffic numbers and our work with the city staff to develop that into a 2020 and 2022 analysis period gives us the right answer. We did a analysis of the crash history and did not find an issue there. And your traffic engineer, DKS Associates, found no issues with our work other than the fact that we neglected to provide the daily trip generation rate for the development. We used the AM and PM peak hours and found that traffic operations were acceptable. Also, I'd comment on the fact that they did not have an issue with our proposal for the driveway being about 50 feet from the intersection rather than 100, but that's a necessity due to the size of the parcel. At any rate, I'm here to go into any more detail that you might have about traffic issues.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Hamer.
So my number one question is why you decided to use a pitched roof instead of over a flat roof to help keep the shadow line down?
I'm going to let Mildred handle that because I know that like with the height and stuff, we had to go that, but go ahead, Mildred.
Sure. Part of it is just the roof form in itself and trying to lend to the residential proximity. And part of it is let's see, if I pull up, I can pull back up what I have, but basically if we could have just taken off the pitched roof altogether, like you're saying, but then we would have a flat roof. And if you look at the sun angle, then it doesn't, because of the angle of the roof and the angle of the sun, the roof does not actually block the sun anymore, if that makes sense. So that's why we went for it. And we felt like it just lended itself more than to kind of a blend of the residential and commercial area.
Any other questions from the commissioners to the applicant?
Can I ask a follow-up question on that, just to be clear?
Go ahead.
So Mildred, you could have designed this building with a flat roof and met the criteria of the code. But as I understand it, you included the hip roof because it was contextual to the neighborhood. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that is accurate. And along with pulling back, the recessed fourth floor.
So has the applicant, have you considered a flat roof? Would you consider a flat roof if neighbors were strongly against the additional feet that are required in order to get the hip roof?
I mean, I would think that we would consider it. Obviously, if that's a condition, then we would do it. We just felt like the design of itself, it was more contextual. If you were to disagree, then yeah, that would definitely take us, the height would no longer be above 45 feet. It would actually be under code. Yes,
right.
Or we could.
With that 45 feet though, are we able to fit our heating, anything else associated with it? And that's, I think, what is important to say to Ms. Roosevelt. Is it going to be able to allow the items that need to go up into the attic? Because I know that's why we added that roof.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Valerie, that is a great point. One of the things that I didn't mention is that all the mechanical units are, the interior ones are in that roof area, and then the exterior units are actually on the roof decks up above. And that's what we decided to do instead of putting them down on ground level. And that is to keep the noise away from the neighbors. So that does bring up a good point.
So let me take that further then. If you did not include the hip roof, then what we would see on the exterior is a number of punches potentially of these units on the exterior of the building, and then several of them potentially sitting out on the site at sidewalk or pedestrian level.
No, actually, if you were talking about just making that very top roof flat rather than a gable,
yep,
we would still keep the exterior units up off the ground and put them there. Right now, they're all situated on the that top penthouse units deck area. That's where we have 5 or 6 units that would normally be down on the ground making noise. They're all up on her penthouse deck level, and that's where they would remain. What it does is there are some interior units that are tucked in that attic. We would need to, I'm imagining we would find another space on the inside rather than putting them. One of the goals is going to remain, and that was to keep the units off the ground and to limit the penetrations into the exterior wall for them. There's going to be some, but we would still keep them off the ground, I would assume, right, Valerie?
Well, I mean, honestly, if we don't have the 4th story, we'll have to move them to the ground.
Well, no, that's if we have the 4th story, but there's a flat roof on the 4th story, right? That was the question? Yeah.
Yeah, if there's a 4th story, we'll put them there. If there's not a 4th story, we will put them down onto the 1st level.
Would you consider putting them into the garage space so they're still hidden from view but vented directly to exterior?
Unfortunately, I mean, that's a great idea, but it won't work by code. They have to be in outside air.
Okay. Chair Macy, I have another question for John Ripplinger.
Go ahead.
John, after you've taken a close look at this project, is there any way that you could imagine this development meeting the 100-foot distance criteria at the intersection?
No, it cannot, because the property itself along Olson is not even 100 feet.
Thank you. And then one final question. There is parking along 32nd, for example, at Milwaukee Cafe. Was it ever considered that additional parking parallel to 32nd would be incorporated? There's currently, am I reading 22 feet worth of sidewalk?
In fact, yes, the parking would be established along 32nd in much the way that it is along the Milwaukee Cafe right now.
Okay.
And if I can add to that, that is one thing I was going to bring up kind of on my wrap up. I have, if you were to look at 32nd, because there's absolutely no on-street parking right now on 32nd, we will be adding about 5 on-street parking spaces. And as
5 or 7.
Well, and that's just on 32nd. We will also be adding it on Olson Street because, as one of the commissioners mentioned earlier, currently Olson Street is almost all a driveway in front of that auto body shop. There's actually no legal parking in front of it on the street. So and part of the reason why we wanted to reduce the driveway width was to 22 is to provide more on-street parking. So it'll be 6 to 7 added parking spots just by the project being completed.
I still have a few more questions. Sorry, I know I said that was my last one. I recognize that there is locked bicycle parking for, I'm assuming just for the tenants only, but is there any indication of providing bike parking along 32nd or Olson for the retail?
Yes. And we're kind of talking a little bit about some items that I was going to hit up again towards the end, but let's go ahead and talk about the parking issue because you're bringing up some very good questions. And we are adding bike parking for public along the frontage in the right of way, which is called short-term parking. And so those will be on both sides of the building. And then on the inside of the building, we're providing 20 some bike parking spaces for residents. So there's some on the first floor and then some in all the units. So there's a considerable amount of bike parking, both for visitors and for residents. And one thing that I wanted to add, as long as we're talking about the parking, is that there's also, we have EV ports for electronic vehicles in the parking area. And when we designed the parking, we really maximized it. It's very efficient on the layout, so we try to get the most possible. But the only way to get more car parking in there right now would be to decrease the required commercial. We'd actually have to eliminate the commercial, but it's required by the code, so it's very maximized.
I think I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to wrap it up on the proposal, Mildred? Do you have some wrap-ups?
I will have an opportunity at the end to do a rebuttal.
You will. Did you have something else, Commissioner Hemer?
So on the parking, Mildred,
yes.
To be able to get in 4 more spots, which would get you into code, are you saying that you would have to eliminate all 1,361 square feet of retail?
The reason it's interesting because the way you phrase it sounds like no duh, you wouldn't lose them, right? But if you think about having to maneuver in the parking, you have to have a driveway to get to all the spaces, and there's not enough width to get another access aisle. So
but in addition, if you guys wanted us to get to that parking requirement, we would have to reduce the commercial and make those apartments be able to supply that. That's why we went in with the parking land use application.
Does that make, I can pull up the parking layout for you if that helps me to kind of show you.
Yeah, so I would kind of like to see the balance in that, and I guess explain there's other ways to add parking, like shrink the building and provide some off-street parking in an open parking lot and not have it covered. So you claim that it's an economic disparity not to have these 4 extra parking spots, and I haven't heard you touch on what those economic impacts are.
I didn't say economics, I'm not sure.
Hold on. Hammer, have you looked at the actual parking situation? How are you going to be able to have that come to where it's actually exposed? So I asked you in that question to look at that.
Okay, so that's your answer?
I'm sorry. Was your question?
I'm sorry. So my question is that there's a lot of ways to get parking, I guess.
Correct.
And one of the reasons why you said that you couldn't supply the 4 extra spots was because of the economic impact it would have on the overall project. That is a correct statement, right?
Not me.
That wasn't in your answer in the...
No.
All right. So why
might have been somebody else.
Is the reason why you don't provide 4 extra parking spots is because it just doesn't fit with the current design? What changes would need to be done to the design to be able to fit those?
So we are required to provide the driveway access off Olson Street, which if I don't know if you have the drawings in front of you, but basically that sets up the access aisle going north-south. And so you have parking spaces off both sides. In order to add another row of parking, you'd have to have another access aisle, and the site is not long enough. And you could extend the building to the north, but then you would reduce, and you might be able to get a couple more spaces, but then you'd have to reduce the building in the east-west, which would mean your commercial space would get reduced, not entirely, but it would be greatly reduced. And then you'd be getting closer to the existing residents to the north. So the answer is yes, you could, but then you're going to have to give up that the 17-foot setback to the north existing house, and you would have to remove some of the existing commercial to get your 15% landscape, unless you provided a variance for us to not have to do 15%, landscape. And then it also pulls the building back off the pedestrian. The city currently has a minimum and maximum setback. So there's you're walking a fine line of meeting that maximum setback, getting the 15%, staying away from the existing, residents to the north. And so, yes, there would be other concessions that would have to be made. And those are some of the concessions.
Okay. Is it easier to go that route, or is it harder?
I just think I would think it'd be less desirable to have the whole building move closer to the north to the existing residents, and to pull it away from the pedestrian sidewalk, because I know the city's goal is to have it closer. That's why they have a maximum setback. And then you'd end up with landscape along that strip instead of, the kind of enhanced pedestrian way. So let me know if you have follow-up questions on that. To clarify, okay.
And so, if you actually were to move it to the north, then your detention center, your detention pond system would have to shift somewhere.
Yes. Well, and it's all below ground anyway right now. So yeah, it would shift. It would basically have to shift either along the frontage because we would have to provide landscape. So then if the building extended to the north to add some more parking, the building then would decrease basically in width in the east-west direction. So the commercial space would get smaller in order to provide that 15% landscape. So either the stormwater would be below the building itself or below the landscape because it's already underground. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
We try to maximize the best scenario for the city of Milwaukee in the parking situation and in the commercial aspect, because you guys do want that commercial aspect versus having it just be apartments.
It's required. The commercial aspects is required. So, yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the commissioners to the applicant? Yes, Commissioner Edge.
I just want to thank the applicant for providing the extra detail that they did during their presentation. I had, several questions that were actually addressed by your presentation. So I wanted to, just express my gratitude for you sharing that information, including the shadow study and line of sight, angles and everything. That was really helpful and something that we thought was missing from the original packet. So thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. I think that you've touched on all the areas that we need to be considering and really that I had questions about and what you hadn't yet Commissioner Loosevelt brought up. And so thank you, Commissioner Loosevelt. So anyway, thanks again. I just appreciate all the extra detail from your presentation. So thank you.
You bet.
Okay, last call for questions to the applicant from the commissioners. Okay, we're now going to hear a public testimony, and we expect a good bit of public testimony. So I'm going to ask for those who are in opposition, and I want to give the floor initially to the representatives from the NDA. They are the recognized representative body for the community, and so I'm going to let them have some time. And typically we limit the applicants to 3 minutes, but I understand there's 2 representatives from the NDA, and I'm going to give them at least 6 minutes each for a total of 12 minutes to present their comments. Yes, Mr. Egner.
Typically, don't we, I think the script includes this, but don't we have people speaking in favor go first?
We do, but I have altered the sequence.
Okay, just wanted to, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can have Matt Rinker elevated to speaker status. So Matt, if that's okay, I'm going to bring you over. And,
all right.
Okay.
Am I seen and heard? All right, sounds good. Hey, my name is Matthew Rinker. I'm the chair of the Ardmore Johns Creek Neighborhood District Association. I live at 3012 Southeast Belcourt Street in Milwaukee. And I'll let Lisa introduce herself.
So I'm here too. I'm Lisa Gagnon-Rinker. I live at 3012 Southeast Balfour Street. I'm a land use chair in the Ardmore Johnson Creek Neighborhood Association.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to start off just some general, gut impressions. So this neighborhood hub idea has been in the works for at least a decade, I believe. We've gone through various iterations of doing outreach, visioning, And the input from those visioning sessions have taken by city staff. They've done some excellent work on writing codes to say, how do we attain what it is that the neighborhood is after here? There's some mixed use, some commercial, something that would be reachable from, by the neighborhood on foot or on bike, something where they don't have to get in the car. So when I see this particular application come in with all the variances and such attached to it, it just makes me think that those are being asked for because the scope of this project does not fit with that visioning. It does not fit with the code that was written to realize that visioning. And it just seems out of scope. Plus the additional danger here is this will set precedent where that code largely for this neighborhood hub area to make certain that it is indeed scaled to the neighborhood is something that actually is adding positively to the neighborhood. That variance right out of the gate, the precedent that it sets, that's very, very shaky ground to get off on the neighborhood hubs, not only ours, but the ones in other neighborhoods. On that note, I'm going to let Lisa speak to a few points.
I just have a clarification question first. When I was looking through this and you guys presented this, Vera, this is a question for you. Basically under the variances, in the access way, there were 2 variances. Doesn't that make this 4 variances? Because there was not only access wide is 22 to 24, plus the access of less than 100 feet. So does that count as 4 variances versus 3? Because we also have the height and the parking.
So actually, if I may, through the chair, so there's the height variance and the access width variance. The other 2 requests are modifications. So Title 12 talks about the spacing standard of the driveway to the intersection as a modification. They don't need to get a variance to that. They need to show through their TIS and through a traffic access study that the modification is reasonable and will not result in negative impacts. So, and then the parking reduction is a modification. It's specifically called out as a modification in the code. Those 2 are not variances.
Okay. Just qualifying that. I wasn't sure. I hadn't heard that before and I didn't catch it. So
I want to say one more thing to Vice Chair Luceville. You asked about flattening the roof to meet the 45-foot requirement. But keep in mind, the requirement is a maximum of 45 feet or 3 floors, whichever is less. So the fact that they could flatten a roof to 45 feet, they're still outside of the code for the 3 stories. So please keep that in mind.
all right. Anyway, so that was the first question that I had was about that if that was a variance. And then to clarify, also, I wanted to address the traffic study with John because I didn't see any specific neighborhood analysis for traffic or the background growth analysis that had already basically approved for developments such as the hillside development. And then I heard from Vera that this was based off the hillside developments. So I'm like, okay, that's where the numbers came from. But then there's new development also in a 234 unit development on Monroe Street, which is also close to this area. So as far as future development and traffic, I don't know if that had been included or not. And then there's also, just from the presentation of the applicant, there was a wealth of information that I have not seen before about the shadows and different things. And I understand that this is for this time of year. And the neighborhood would request what that is throughout the year, what that shadow analysis would be on those homes. Just to see what that would be. It seems like that would be different. It's just a lot of information to see and to discuss. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an essential worker, and I live in the neighborhood. And I didn't catch where Valerie lives. I didn't hear her address, but I just wanted to say that as far as the neighborhood goes with the 4th story, a lot of people are opposed to it just because the first precedent setting, and we're eager to see new development, but we don't want it to break all the codes that we've carefully set up And of course, the first thing that comes to you with the neighborhood, and I know you've all read the letter that neighborhood did, it's 7 pages long, and I'm sorry for that, but we just had to reiterate everything that we saw when we read things. And part of this kind of comes down to safety. And because this area is an intersection that is typically fairly busy, and we will have parking on, it sounds like, both sides of that building. So we'll have it on 32nd and on Olson, but only on that area. And it will have a bump out, which will widen 32nd. But down the street, down Olson Street, we'll have kids coming up and people on bikes and pedestrians, and there aren't sidewalks. There's no infrastructure past that. And so people are going to be walking up the middle of the road. And so one of the big concerns we have with the access way and with parking and everything that happens is safety, because we have school kids that come up that street. And I know you've all read this, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's important. Because while school kids coming up that street, across the street is a bus stop that basically middle school, high school, all students, special needs kids get on that bus. And that's what's a very crucial intersection for the neighborhood. We just want to make sure everybody knows that, understands that. I'm sure you do. And so we're looking at the variances from that aspect of safety and meeting that kind of code. And we don't feel that it meets that. And we're concerned. We wouldn't be raising issues unless we were concerned. A lot of times, and Vera can verify this, we don't even respond as a neighborhood to things because we understand that it's something that's reasonable, it's prudent. I mean, there's a neighbor that's, increasing their yard to 6-foot variance from the side, for their house. That's fine. They're improving their house. But this is something that's going to impact the neighborhood, not just for our generation, but for others. And we want to make sure it's right. Well, actually, it's not just our neighborhood. It's going to impact the entire city because this sets precedents for all NMU zones. And so we want to make sure that other MNU zones don't have to deal with something where we've set a precedent now and it isn't quite what they desired either. And again, the height variance is a big issue for us. And I hadn't seen any of those scale line descriptions before the line of sight study. That would have been nice to have had before the meeting. As a neighborhood, I would actually request to have that information to be able to review that and take a look at it. So I'm actually saying that this seems like it's going to take longer than just one meeting, and I'm sorry for that. But there's a lot of information that's been provided tonight that I feel like I need time to review, and as a neighborhood, we need time to review. Basically, the concerns of the neighborhood are many, and it's about the height variance first breaking code, and to be brief, the safety of people walking up the streets, of bicycles and pedestrians in the neighborhood. And I know that Vera said that the 19.303.1 purpose code doesn't apply because it's not part of the variance, but basically contributing to a vibrant local economy. The neighborhood would argue that retail space, part of the neighborhood hub area was so that people could come and gather, and the space that's provided doesn't really allow that. And I understand they have limitations, but it's one of those things where as a neighborhood, we're hoping for more. And again, our code is maybe, again, and I represented that in our letter to the Planning Commission, that maybe our code needs to be adjusted in some ways to make some of this possible. And just so I'm not remiss, there were some other things I hadn't included. I hadn't had time to look over the stormwater application part of the project. And as far as the stormwater application part goes, the very second paragraph of that stated that it was on a grocery store site, previous grocery store site, and it's not. And so there were, I think, let me see my count. I'll submit this to Vera. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different questions I had about the Milwaukee standards versus what the application, the stormwater standards stated. So I just had questions, basically if they were covered, and about soil remediation measures addressed by the DEQ, because this is a DEQ site with conditions. And so anyway, not to draw on, there are other people who need to talk, and I don't want to take all your time, but as a neighborhood, we just wanted to say, unfortunately, we're opposed this particular project, and we'd like to be in favor. We would have liked to have talked about it beforehand, and we would like them to come to a meeting and present and then discuss what the neighborhood's vision was when all this process started, but we never got that opportunity. So anyway.
I think that more or less sums it up. Like I said, we're excited about the neighborhood hubs. We just feel that the codes are created for a reason. Let's use those to be our guide, and let's not potentially have our first step be the one that goes over a cliff. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions of the Neighborhood Association representatives? Mr. Hemer.
Mr. Reichner and Ms. Gunyon-Reicher, the Ardenwald typically meets later on in the month, correct?
Yes, fourth Mondays, typically, unless a holiday gets in the way.
We met last night.
Oh, so you guys wouldn't be able to meet by July 14th to discuss any changes or anything that you saw prior or during this proposal meeting?
We could definitely call a special board meeting, and we could definitely discuss that.
Yeah, we typically have the summer off, so our next actual NDA meeting that's sort of open to public, so to speak, would be in September. But we do have the capability, as Lisa said, to pull a board meeting together.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the NDA reps? Yes, Mr. Edge.
Thank you for your comments, both testimony in advance as well as your comments this evening. We really appreciate hearing from you, about your concerns about these issues. My question is specifically when we're talking about the height variance and, so if theoretically, if we found, we were able to find that the height variance was to be denied and, the applicant ended up with a proposal that, met the height criteria and then basically everything else was the same. Is that more, is that more in line with what your expectations are? Given that, the rest of this is basically to code. So, if we were to deny the top floor, basically the penthouse and the height, variance, that would be one unit that would be eliminated. And the rest of the proposal is basically the same. Is that satisfactory? Is that what an outcome you would be hoping for, or should we be looking for conditions to try to mitigate the impacts from the fourth floor?
Well, I guess we can both share our opinion on this. So for me, it's a combination of the height, the stated 3 floors, and then based on the number of floors and such, how many units are you looking at? And then the number of units are going to drive parking. So it seems to me by solving one issue, you potentially are having fewer parking spaces needed. So maybe you start getting closer to meeting the parking requirements as well.
If you had more diversity, if you had 1, 2, and 3 bedroom sort of units, you would add diversity and probably less parking. That's what we discussed and as a neighborhood and thought. But again, we don't want to change what the applicant submitted because that's what they submitted. But again, we have questions because we didn't know about parking. We're like, could you change the parking? Could you change the units? Could you change this? We wanted to be malleable because we do want development.
Yeah, and Commissioner Edge, this is a multi-variable, equation here. So, when you change one thing, the whole equation starts to shift around on you a little bit. But, we're eager to see something that just fits and doesn't require quite as many variances as we're looking at here.
Yeah.
So it really is just on principle, you do not want it to exceed the height, and there's not really a combination of mitigating factors or desirable public benefits like the landowner occupancy, in this case that might, mitigate that top floor. It really is that you do not want the top floor as proposed.
I think you really, really have to look at the precedent. The application itself says this will set a precedent. So we're not looking at just this site. We're looking all up and down 32nd and the whole NMU zone, and we're looking at NMU zones throughout the other neighborhoods. So I think we have to be cautious on, going kind of fast and loose with this.
Well, you also have to look at the future, because the future uses of this building may not be the same, and you don't know what that could be. And so then you could have all kinds of changes relevant to that.
What changes? Any more changes?
Okay, well, thank you for answering those questions. I appreciate your feedback.
No, thank you.
Any other questions from the commissioners for the NDA reps? At this point, yes, Commissioner Hurt. Go ahead. You're muted.
He's muted.
There we go.
Right.
I thought that it would be easier to do this on my iPad with my laptop, but I think next time I'll have to do it on my laptop because iPad is not working very well. But regardless, I was just wondering, thank you for all the comments, and this has been really informative. I was wondering if they could summarize maybe the top 3 concerns that they have. Just what were the top 3? Is it safety? Is it the future precedent for other projects to kind of be changed? Is it like what are the main 3 most concerning?
No, why don't you tackle that?
Safety, always safety first.
For the walkability of the kids getting onto the.
Yeah, it's just because Olson Street, so 30 seconds of Collector Street, and so you have this intersection, you'll have vehicles coming out less than 50 feet from an intersection, pulling out, which there will be sounds like a sidewalk there on both sides of that building, but then the rest of Olson Street is not developed. And so then you'll have kids walking up the street and bicycles coming up the street. And if you have people parking on both sides up and down the street, which already happens, because I've seen people already put signs out because Milwaukee Cafe, it'll say, please do not block driveway. I'm like, okay, all right. So there's already concerns going on in that street. And so my concern first is safety for the pedestrians and bicyclists coming up that, because they won't have a sidewalk to be on. It's not, and I don't think there's any plan for that to be a sidewalk on both sides of the street going up and down Olson Street. None of the ones on west side of 32nd have sidewalks. And then the second, of course, is precedent that it's going to set for the future, not just for our community, but for all communities in Milwaukee. And then third is essentially neighborhood concerns as far as neighbors that are going to be impacted by this. And I don't live right by it. I'll just say that I don't, and I probably wouldn't be impacted by it. But I have compassion for my neighbors, and I understand exactly how they would feel. The buildings, the houses that are right next to it, the one that they showed was 2-story. There's a 1-story on the other side to the north, and those neighbors are the ones I feel the most for, because when we said, and again, the neighborhood said when we were discussing all this neighborhood hub stuff, and I don't want to get into, I mean, this is something to take up with council, but the code itself, 3 stories when we were talking about neighborhood hub stuff is what was discussed. There was no in or 45 feet. It was 3 stories, which is definitely typically not 45 feet, and each story is 15 feet. And so that was a surprise for me. It was educational. But I have to say that changes a lot of things and allows a lot of variables into the process. So those are the 3 major concerns.
And once again, it's when Lisa's talking about one of the concerns, the big 3 being just scope or scale in relation to neighbors. Remember, it's just not these 2 or 3 adjacent neighbors. We're talking all potentially impacted neighbors up the 32nd Avenue NMU corridor. And also other neighborhoods. So a lot of great work went into the visioning and into the codes. I'd just say let's be really cautious before we just take that pile of papers and throw it up and do it.
And again, it's not that we don't appreciate what the applicant did. The applicant did a good job. They submitted everything. It was lengthy, but it was good. It was succinct, and so we got through everything that we could. And that's why I didn't get to the stormwater, but as much as I should have, but.
It just appears to be too ambitious for this particular parcel in the context of a neighborhood hub zone.
Hey, thank you for representing the neighborhood association. We're going to shift now to other members of the public who wish to testify in opposition. I'm going to give priority to those who are actually in City Hall now. And so I would remind you that when you're called to the podium, please state your name and address, and let's just confine your remarks to the application and the relevant criteria to avoid repetition or any irrelevant information. And because we got a lot of people to get through tonight, I'm going to have to enforce a strict 3-minute time limit on individual testimony.
Hi, my name is Christina. I live. This better not be. I'm telling you. No,
Okay, now see if that works. Does that work now?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you fine. Continue.
All right. My name is Christina. My name is Christina. I live at 4031 Southeast Olson Street. So I, I'm a regular there, both as a pedestrian and a motorist. A lot of my thoughts fall in line with what has already been said, but my highest priority is around the parking variance. I agree with the neighborhood association representatives that those regulations were built on input from the community. As someone who has filled out many of those surveys and attended the meetings at workshops at schools, which I very much appreciate you putting on, my hope would be that both that input and those regulations have value and are upheld here. I'm very excited, like many people are, to see a little bit of development. I would love some shops down there. I know I get a lot of enjoyment and value out of the Milwaukee Cafe, but I find it hard to be willing to compromise on these parking spaces when there is room for, a 4-bathroom penthouse on that corner. That is not in line with my values, and I don't think it's representative of the work and the opinions and contributions that the community has already made. That is all. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you all have
Chair
any
Massey,
questions?
sorry, go ahead. Chair Massey, does anyone have any questions for Ms. Harris? Okay. All right.
Sorry, I dropped out.
Hi, my name is Josh Trollstrup. I live at 3024 Southeast Olson Street. It's about 3 houses down, across the street from the property. A lot of notes on my hand and this paper, so I'm going to go through it quickly. As far as the height goes, I certainly feel for the property owner on the west side of that, the sun is higher in the summer than it is in the winter. Her house is definitely going to get shaded out pretty badly throughout 8 months of the year here in Oregon. And additionally, when I saw the viewpoint profiles, it is interesting regarding those 2 houses, but my house, 3 houses down, is a direct shot, as well as all of my neighbors. So there's not a relevancy to the houses directly bordering it if you're going to ignore the other 10 houses that have a front row view. And I'm not really looking forward to living with my blinds down. Parking wise, there's already a serious parking problem on that part of the block, mostly due to the cafe being very successful, which is wonderful. And I'm very happy that someone's gotten to get in there and be successful, which is wonderful. But in my heart of hearts and fantasy, I was hoping that that spot would turn into a parking lot, which would be ugly and untenable. But that's the only thing that would actually solve the actual current parking problem without the additional parking that will be needed for this new spot. As far as the driveway being off of Olson, I drive a lot for work. The car count doesn't matter. That will absolutely produce a bottleneck at that intersection, particularly at the time of day that people need to get in and out of that neighborhood and kids are going to school. It's just a reality. And yeah, no sidewalks. I do want to just add on to that. Not only do kids walk up and down the street already, but kids play in the street. That's all there is. You can't go on the other side of the cars. You're in people's yards. So it's a pretty serious issue. The traffic, not only because of the kids, but because of the additional development down the street, I don't see how that's not going to bring a lot more traffic up and down the street on its own, but particularly when you look at an intersection where you have a driveway right next to the intersection. I know personally, if I go to pull out of that parking structure, I'm turning right no matter what, because it's just far easier than trying to fight the bottlenecks. Then you have all that additional traffic coming straight down the street.
You have about 30 seconds left.
No, they would go down Olson, because you're not going to want to take the left right on the 32nd if there's 6 cars waiting there and people are trying to get out of the cafe and people are coming up the street. That's just, that will happen. And I kind of lost my train of thought, but yes, the traffic will increase. The parking's already difficult. When I go to the grocery store in non-COVID days and on a Saturday or Sunday, the cafe is thriving, I have to very carefully plan which of my vehicles I'm going to take so I know I'm going to be able to park when I get back home from the grocery store at 8 or 9 in the morning. That's already a reality. The idea that people will just decide to take the option of public transportation, bikes, sounds wonderful. Everyone that's lived here over the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years has seen what has happened on Division, on Alberta, all the other new districts. That will happen. That always happens. It gets congested. And I'm definitely for a little bit more development, some retail space, but as was brought up, I can't remember by who, 2 micro spaces will be very good for 2 small business owners, which I like that idea, but it isn't a gathering space by any stretch of the imagination.
Excuse me, sir. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, and we're going to go to someone else. Thank you for your testimony.
Yes, thank you very much.
I need to put this thing in. If you want to hear what they say, if they ask you questions, that's helpful. Yeah, but you can speak without it in your head first.
If it's in your head while you talk, it will echo.
Yeah.
If it's in my head while I talk, it will what?
It will echo.
Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay.
I'll tell you if they ask the question.
Oh, thank you. Where do I look? This thing here? Okay. Hi, I'm Rita Lynn, and I live at 3007 Southeast Olson Street. So I am directly down the block on the same side of the street as this lot. And on one hand, I don't really mind the building going higher. And if I had to choose between a flat roof and the roof as it is currently proposed, I like the idea of not having a flat roof. Runoff on a flat roof is near impossible. It's kind of a contradiction in terms. Like I said, I don't really have an objection to the building going higher. However, I do share the Rinker's concerns about precedent setting and that we do have to take the long view. My principal concern, and as far as having the driveway 50 feet off of Olson. That, my concern for that is the same as my regular general concern, which is the land slopes down toward the river. That's just the topography. It has to do that. Well, so when you are on Olson Street, attempting, you're pointed east and you're attempting to turn onto 32nd, in every case, pretty much, that is a rather dangerous, hazardous endeavor because it's really hard to see. You have to just about get your car's front end up into the middle of 32nd before you can have full view and vision whether or not anybody's coming. And of course, if there is a vehicle parked or stopped on 32nd in front of anywhere in front of the cafe, whether it's dropping off, picking up a dog or whatever it is, and or if there's a bus stop at that designated TriMet stop, now you're really in the middle of 32nd Avenue before you can properly see if it's safe to turn. And by then you made yourself a traffic hazard. Also, we have real concern in general about not having enough parking places for the amount of units. We've seen this just make a horrific problem up in Selwood. And as the other speakers have noted, also up in Portland, along Division, Hawthorne, Belmont, and all of those busy through neighborhood streets.
You have about 30 seconds left.
The intersection is already hazardous enough that I am really concerned about adding anything to that. Also, however, I am pleased by the idea of the owner living on site. So that's our main concern. It's just parking, and the safety of the intersection is already compromised. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamer, do you have a question for the applicant, for the?
You're muted.
Yeah, I know. I was just trying to tell her what you were saying because she didn't have her earbud in.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I have one question. If she's willing to come back.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you for making a return trip to the microphone and for your comments tonight. What I wanted to ask was you specifically cited the danger about making that left turn to 32nd Avenue northbound from Olson. Would your concerns be mitigated in any way if the city signed that as a right turn only?
No. We are in the middle of the neighborhood. Olson Street is. We're about halfway between Harrison on the south and the Johnson Creek Tacoma intersection on the north. We need to be able to turn right or left. And if we want to go east, we've got to make a left turn to go up Filbert or Roswell or one of the other streets to take us east. So I feel that needs to be able to remain a street that you can turn either way off of Olson.
But as an unsignalized intersection, it presents a hazard that is concerning.
It is,
already.
And a lot of the problem is that in your car, you are up above the rest of Olson, and you're trying desperately to be able to see around the corner and to be able to tell if there's any oncoming traffic.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate your answering my question.
Thank you. Do we have any other public members in the City Hall?
You're good.
Oh, no. Okay.
Thank you.
Chair Massey, there were two other folks that were interested in testifying live, but they had to leave.
Oh.
So that's all we have for live testimony.
Okay. We can take testimony from Zoom in opposition at this point.
Okay, so I will go by numbers or words the hands raised first. If you do want to provide testimony, please raise your hand in Zoom. I think if you right click on your name, it'll allow you to raise your hand. But if you have any problems with that, use the chat or the Q&A function to let us know. But I will start with the first one that I see, which is Jacob Sherman. I will let you...
Mary, may I just say something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Chair Massey, if anybody on the commission or anybody here in staff, this might be a good time to take a 5-minute break if anybody needs it. So I would just throw that out for you.
You're muted, Chair Massey.
Let's recess for 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, we're back on air, so now we're good. Okay, so I will start with the first one on the list, which is Jacob Sherman. I'll click to allow to talk. If you'd like video, if you'd like to be seen via video, just let us know and I'll move you to the panelist. But Jacob, you should be allowed to talk now.
Sure, thank you, Mary. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It'd be fine if you wanted to turn on the Zoom video.
Okay. All right. You should be able to turn on your video now.
Great. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Chair Mazzy, commissioners, thanks for the opportunity to testify this evening. My name, for the record, is Jacob Sherman. I live at 3023 Southeast Olson, just a few parcels away from the proposed development. I'm submitting my testimony tonight, both orally and I've submitted testimony in writing. I'm surprised or perhaps excited that I perhaps take the cake submitting 8 pages of testimony, which is longer than the NDA. I'm submitting testimony, I think, both as an impacted neighbor as well as a professional with background in city planning and policymaking in another community. While I'm very excited to see this property redeveloped, I write to strongly urge the Planning Commission to take the top 2 following actions. First, oppose the variance to allow the building with 4 stories and a maximum height of 48 feet. And second, oppose the parking modifications to reduce the number of off-street parking spaces to 17 rather than the required minimum of 21, unless both the city and the developer implement additional measures to mitigate some of the significant impacts to the neighborhood. I'm going to focus some of my testimony so as to spend a lot of time on some of the other issues that the NDA and other community members have already raised. With regards to the parking modification, I think there are concerns around safety. With respect to Commissioner Edge's question around the right turn only at 32nd, that's something that I personally would be supportive of because there are kind of conflicts at that intersection. Additionally, with the creation of some of the on-street parking on 32nd, I have a kind of a new question about what happens to the sidewalk that is currently on 32nd and provides kind of safe passage. Is that going to be eliminated or moved? I think some of those issues kind of need to be addressed and developed further. I also want to flag kind of a new issue that I haven't seen previously submitted in any testimony about access to our mailboxes from the United States Postal Service. You can refer to that more in the accompanying memo. In the short little bit of remaining time, I'd also really like to turn to what Chair Massey said at kind of the opening of this entire meeting, that the applicant has the burden of proof to demonstrate they meet Milwaukee Municipal Code, specifically things like Title 19.911 on variances. In my review of the discretionary relief criteria—
30 more seconds, Mr. Sherman.
The applicant has failed to meet several of those measures, such as submitting an alternatives analysis. Therefore, I would urge the Planning Commission that the applicant has not provided the burden of proof, and the Commission should not continue this hearing and should deny the application because it does not meet the criteria. I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioners have any questions for Mr. Sherman? Thank you. We'll take, I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Losevelt.
I've got a crying child in the back. So I'd like to ask you to develop on your comments about the Postal Service and the mailbox access.
Yeah, so on our street, as well as kind of many adjacent streets in the area, we have curbside postal boxes, and the United States Postal Service requires a, quote, clear approach of 30 feet to our mailboxes in order to be able to drive up and deliver their mail. both myself and many of my surrounding neighbors could tell you that given the existing demands of public parking on our street because of the success of the coffee shop, we are rather frequently do not get our mail delivered to us because guests of the patrons of the establishments park too close to our mailboxes. This has happened to me more times than I personally can count. I've even had the postal carrier threaten to suspend delivery service altogether, and that me and my neighbors who have also had similar instances would have to drive down to downtown Milwaukee to pick up our mail. So I think there's a real conflict here and a significant impact that hasn't been kind of addressed at all or even necessarily elevated.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you.
I have one more question.
Mr. Edge?
Yes. Thanks for your comments, Mr. Sherman. I appreciated the extra detail that you provided in your written testimony. I know you joked that it was a lot, but I appreciate the content and the context. You had mentioned one thing in particular that caught my attention just a few moments ago, and that was that the parking modification might be something that you think could be approvable were the city and the applicant to take additional mitigation measures. So my question is do you have any? Did you have any mitigation measures in mind that would be appropriate for this site that would make you feel more comfortable with the requested parking modification?
Thank you, Commissioner Edge. I think there's two modifications that kind of come to mind. First is instituting a transportation demand management requirement at the development, mandating that the developer provide annual bus passes to all occupants within the building in order to actually incentivize use of alternative transportation means, I think could be one type of option. I think another mitigation measure to kind of answer Commissioner Hamer's earlier question about parking would be to actually reduce or eliminate the number of housing units in order to reduce the amount of parking required and come into compliance with the zoning code. The purpose of the zoning code is to comply with the zoning code without modifications or variances. The purpose of the zoning code is not to twist the zoning code to set precedent that benefits individuals at the expense of the community. So I think those are some things that you all can deliberate on. But I do think, as others have articulated, that there are significant impacts as it pertains to parking.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Sherman? Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
Thank you.
Okay, I will go to the next on the list, which is Jessica Valentine. I'll allow you to talk, Jessica. And there you go.
Actually, this is the husband, Peter.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, that's totally fine. I live at 9367 Southeast 32nd Avenue, so I'm the neighbor directly to the north. I think the height variance, or 3 stories, is something that needs to be talked about. I mean, I'm glad that they did it, and I think they did their shadow review in June. I mean, I would like to see that in, September through April. I bet most of my yard will be covered with that building. That's a big concern, parking for sure. I mean, it's already tight with the cafe. I mean, everybody said it. And that's, a huge concern for me. And also having, this is a family neighborhood, and having single, 1-bedroom or studio apartments, I don't think that it's fine if that's what they want to do. But this is where we lived as, families. This is a family neighborhood, really. That's kind of why people moved here, is to be in family neighborhoods, not, the single family or single dwellings. So that's kind of my concern. Yeah. And then also directly outside my, kitchen window, I'm going to be staring at a 45-foot building. I'm not too stoked on that. One other thing I do want to say, Vera, I really appreciate you it was really nice talking to you on the phone and having you answer all my questions very clearly. And yeah, it was really nice talking to you.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for Mr. Valentine? Thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Thank you.
Okay. Next person on the list is Celestina. Celestina, you're good to go.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Planning Commission.
Sorry, Celestina, I think we lost you for a bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'll just start over. Hi, my name is Celestina. Thank you, Planning Commission, and thank you to the applicant for the application. I live on 32nd Avenue, a few doors down from the proposed site. I am a homeowner here. I've lived on 32nd Avenue for a few years. And in general, my testimony is to figure out a way that we can work with the somewhat inevitable outcome of this space being developed into at least a 3-story building, and work with the applicant in a way that we can actually garner some benefits to the community. So my questions are really, what are we getting in exchange for granting these variances? And that is the part of the application that I'm not really convinced on. I don't know what community benefit we are getting by granting the variances that have been requested. I don't have a silver bullet, but I do have a few options that we can consider. One is to have a full solar roof included if we are to grant the height variance. I actually appreciate that the roof in the proposal is not a single slope roof that is the entire footprint, because I do see the value in the gable roof and the offset. So I actually support the roof. If we're going to have the height variance, I support the roof as is. Another
30 seconds, Celestina.
30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to just jump right into a few other ideas that I would encourage the applicant to consider and the Planning Commission to pursue. Applicant could go and do frontage improvements all the way down Olsen, west of 32nd. It's only 2 blocks. So if they would like to have decreased parking, then I think that we could trade for improvements on that street. I also think that the leasing office, the one commercial space that is going to be used as a leasing office, could be doubled as a community space. So whether that have a room that is rentable and accessible to the community, a computer with internet access that's available to the community. In conclusion, I think that there's a lot more thinking that could be done to create benefit to the community, while also understanding that development on this parcel is going to happen. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have questions for Celestina? Commissioner Edge.
Thank you for your comments, Celestina. I appreciate hearing from you on this as a neighbor of the project. And what I was wondering is, would you consider it a public benefit that for the height variance that the applicant would be basically owner occupant, and that would be kind of a public benefit from the allowing the additional story.
Yeah,
do you feel that that's a public benefit?
I'm pretty unconvinced. I suppose if somebody could explain to me beyond the fact that for whatever term the developer is going to live there, that they might have more vested interest in upkeeping the property than they otherwise would with their multi-million-dollar apartment building investment anyway. I'm a little bit unconvinced that that is the public benefit. I think that the benefit in securing the longevity of someone's investment is a benefit either way. Or I'm sorry, is going to exist either way, and that there's no added public benefit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Celestina? Thank you for your comments, Celestina.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I have Cheryl next. So Cheryl, I'll allow you to talk and you are good to go.
Okay, am I getting through?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Anthony Sargent. I'm representing Cheryl's Canine Styling. I'm a facilities manager. I'm responsible for interior upgrades, equipment maintenance, things like that. This is a business that is it's a six-figure business that's been there since 1992, serving the surrounding community and beyond. So I guess I got a couple of questions actually for Valerie. One is, are your tenants going to be able to have dogs in those apartments? And another is, how long is the construction going to last? Because that's going to be a real mess. Also, I didn't see any street parking on any of those prints that were shown earlier. I know there was supposed to be like 5 in the front. I didn't see any prints with that on it. And maybe I guess there might be 2 on the south side of that block, I guess, between the street and the driveway to the parking. I wanted to mention some anecdotal information I've seen since we're right next door to the Milwaukee Cafe. The parking on the north side of that building of Shea Pirtle's restaurant there, his cafe, is very poorly marked. And on many mornings, there are 3 cars diagonally parked with no marking, taking up half of the eastbound lane on Olson. So to have the kids doing their thing in the morning and then folks trying to get out of the parking lot in the morning, doesn't seem like a very good idea. Also, we've had issues with folks blocking our employee parking behind the building. And I'm afraid that that's going to be even worse. We've got generally between 4 and 6 employee vehicles in that little slot there, and we have to manage and communicate very well to let each other in and out all the time. So if we end up getting blocked by additional parking, that's a pretty big issue also. Right now, there's just so everybody knows for sure, there are 2 public parking on the street in front of both Cheryl's business and Shay's business, the Milwaukee Cafe and Cheryl's Canine Styling. The one spot in front of Cheryl's business is a 15-minute parking spot. The city was good enough to do that for us, to at least we could move people through there. Have up sometimes over 20 people in and out of there every day. So it's like that one 15-minute parking spot is our lifeline. Without that, we're really in a tight spot. And quite honestly, just as a personal note, I think it was a community detriment to lose Luther Davis Repair. I'm aware of the fact that they were kicked out of that building for several reasons. They were great for the community because of obviously they had a great business there, but they also provided overnight access for the local residents when they weren't open, and they had probably 20 or 30 parking spots there. Since he's shut down and the cyclone fences went up, now there's 1 or 2. So I just had to add that. I think that's about all I've got.
Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next, I have Robert Champ.
You didn't say any.
And Robert, you are good to go.
Hello, my name is Robert Shaw, and I live at 3040 Southeast Olson Street. As of now, I'm looking out my window at the site, so I live quite close. At first, I would like to say that I'm a proponent of the neighborhood mixed use. I think that we need more affordable housing. We need to increase living density. So I appreciate the efforts to redevelop the space. But like many have noted, I am an opponent of a lot of the parking space variance and the height variance. I'm going to start with the parking variance, if I could make my comments on that. I don't think that there will be additional parking available on Southeast Street, as it's already taken up every night to full capacity. And like my neighbor Jacob Sherman said, the blocking of mailboxes is an issue for all of the homes because not many homes have a lot of space next to or around their mailboxes. So many people are literally confined to their driveways and pulling in and out and contacting each other and texting each other to figure out how to park every day. So I would see that would be exacerbated by a large development. I'd also like to point out that the proposed development will diminish Milwaukee Cafe's ability to provide on-street parking for their patrons. I think that a solution for that would to provide at least one off-street parking space for every unit, as well as additional spaces for the retail units that will be. As for the height of for the proposed variance, I like to point out the equity of this issue. I think that a variance could be provided as long as it benefits the community. Celestina added that solar might be a way to improve the community's benefit from this project. I also noted that the house on the west side of the project has solar on their roof, and in one of the applicant's architectural drawings, it showed that the shadows at 9 a.m. covered their solar panels. So not only would it affect the neighbors directly surrounding, for them to be able to get sunlight in their windows and improve their living standard, but also it might hurt local neighbors to be able to provide electricity to their homes. So I think that is an equity issue. And to wrap up the height variance, I think that we need to increase living density, but I don't think that a fourth story with a single family, no matter how nice that family may be, and I agree that an owner on the property might be a benefit to the building. I think in an equity standpoint, adding that fourth story for just a single family, 5 bedrooms and 3 baths is not a justification to approve the variance. I think to add maybe a solution to the density and the parking solution, when the applicant's architecture firm, the representative brought up the drawings of the loft style, so 3 15-foot floors with 2-bedroom capacity for the apartments. I thought that was a great solution. I was like, oh, this looks like the one that I want to see. And I would welcome Miss Valerie Hunter to take up, a quarter or half of the 3rd floor and enjoy Milwaukee as she has been for all this time, because I think she would be a great asset to the community. And that would also reduce the number of parking spaces needed. And those are my thoughts. Thank you for listening. Maybe you have any questions I can scale up.
Commissioners have any questions for Mr. Shaw? Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Now I have Chris Hull-Bailey.
Mary, can you tell me how many people are in the queue right now?
We have 7. This is going to be the first of 7 left.
Okay, thank you.
So Chris, you, let's see, unmuted. Oop, we might be unmuting at the same time. You should be good to go now.
I host. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Chris Holly Bailey, and I live at 8731 Southeast 40th at 40th and Roswell by Ardenwald. I'm a member of the Ardenwald-Johnson Creek NDA board. And I wanted to start by saying that I'm in support of development here, and I appreciate Ms. Hunter's, we need more housing in our community, and we need denser housing to accommodate the people who need it. So I am in support of development here in the mixed-use development zone. However, I frequently walk with my child and dog in this area, and what before the pandemic was a frequent patron of the cafe there, and this was already an intersection that felt unsafe, that I would not allow my child to walk. I would pick them up at this moving around this intersection. And the parking is a big concern in the number of cars coming in. I wanted to speak to the idea of making a right turn only coming out onto 32nd from Olson. I think that if we were to make that happen, we'd need to do some serious consideration about how people are going to turn left, because they're still going to turn left to go north. And what they're going to do is what I already do if I drive to the Milwaukee Cafe, which is go down to 29th, which is supposed to be our pedestrian bikeway, and then go north to Malcolm. So that if we're going to do a right turn, how are we going to mitigate the effect on both 29th, our pedestrian bikeway, and the effect on Malcolm, the street to the north, which people will then be using to make their left turns to get up to Johnson Creek. I thought that Celestina's proposal of a mitigation for the parking, of improving the frontage on both sides of Olson, was a good one, and I could support that as if there were sidewalks all the way along and curbs and potentially grouped mailboxes so that 4 houses shared a mailbox location for those people in Olson. I could see if that making that a safer space where neighbors could get their mail, even with the reduced parking. In general, I am opposed to the height variance. As other people have said, it's not about 3 more feet from 45 feet. It's about 3 feet or 4 stories, and what that feels like to have, or 3 stories, sorry. So I'm opposed to that. I don't see any way that it's in the public good to add a 4th story. We're not adding units for low-income families. We're not adding anything more than 1 more family. And I see a lot of ways, as other people have said, that the developer can achieve both a space for them to live here with just by reducing the number of units, could keep their current footprint, 17 parking spaces, make a few of those 2 bedrooms, or make those 15-foot ceilings on the 3 stories and fit it in. And it doesn't seem that the height/story variance meets that burden of proof from the applicant of providing a public good. I think that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from commissioners? Thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
All right, thank you. We now have Charlie Olson is next. So, Charlie, you should be good to go.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Charlie Olson, spelled O-L-S-O-N, ironically, considering the cross street here. I own a home at 3958 Southeast Wake Street, right by Ardenwald Elementary School, and I've lived in Milwaukee for about 5 years now. Like probably everyone here, I drive down 32nd Avenue almost every day. And I joined the meeting to express my opposition to the proposed variance for the building at 32nd and Olson. According to the Milwaukee Municipal Code, the NMU zone is, quote, intended to provide a safe and pleasant pedestrian environment while maintaining a neighborhood scale identity. So based on that passage, I don't believe the proposed building fits either of these objectives as currently proposed. The building's very large and tall, and also would contribute to livability issues due to the traffic and the density, et cetera, as a lot of people have, already talked about. For some of the people who live around it, I imagine, they bought a home near the site expecting to live in a quiet neighborhood, knowing that they also are near a commercial zone, but then later finding out that a 4-story building is going up next door. A residence will potentially be, peering down into your backyard from a 3rd or 4th story might be a little unsettling. So I think I would support the proposal if it were within all the zoning limits, and I do support the NMU zone, and I support the effort by the city to create a neighborhood commercial hub on 32nd Avenue. I think it's great to have a mix of housing, have a little bit more density here and there, make 32nd Avenue, a real community gathering place, and also introduce a little bit more retail. I think that's great. But as quoted in the municipal code, previously. I think it also needs to preserve the character and livability of the neighborhood. So my opposition focuses more on general livability and just preserving the overall character and identity of the neighborhood, which I think, this building would really, stand out compared to the buildings around it, and not necessarily in a good way. So I think it should preserve the character and livability and improve the experience of all the residents of our neighborhood here in Milwaukee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Olson.
All right, thank you. Eric Yorshaw, you are next. You should be good to go.
Hello, thank you for hearing me out. My name is Eric Yorshaw. I live at 9643 Southeast 29th Avenue. So I'm about 2 blocks away from the proposed site there. I'll echo my concerns about setting a precedent in the first of the new developments along 32nd. I think there's no stated benefit that makes the precedent of the 4th story of value enough to make it happen. The parking, of course, I agree with the other speakers about the issue with the parking there. It just seems like a minimum of 21 spots for 21 units should maintain a minimum because Olson is so crowded. The one thing, since I live on 29th Avenue, which is the bikeway and the pedestrian walkway, and it gets heavy use, even more so during the time of the pandemic. We get a lot of bicyclists, pedestrians of all ages walking up and down that street. So I do have some concern about the impact on 29th Avenue, and I don't know if that was included at all in the driving study that was done to see if there would be any impact there. I know 20 drivers isn't that many, but it seems like it might have a negative impact on the walkability down here on 29th as well for safety. I think that's all I have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Yorshaw? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Renee Moog, you are next, and you should be good to go.
Hi there. I do not live in the neighborhood. I live over at Johnson Creek Boulevard and 42nd, but I am a concerned citizen. I also happen to be a member of the newly formed Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, but my comments are not are individual. They're not representing the committee. And I do thank everyone for their work and attention. This is a very long meeting, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. A lot has been covered, and I have submitted written statement with details, but what I would like to bring up is something that really has nothing to do with the variances specifically. But as I reviewed things, my question had to do more with the intent of the NMU. It is a commercial zone, and the commercial aspect of this project seems minimal, even as the developers were talking about it. It's almost as if they were pointing out that they kind of had to put in some commerce in order to be in compliance with the zoning code. And so my comment has to do with the fact that I think especially because this is a precedent project, that we have to acknowledge, with all the questions and issues that have come up, that the code for the NMU needs some flushing out. And I think it needs to define the qualitatively and quantitatively the idea of the intent of the neighborhood hubs and having a commercial zoning. I know housing is on everybody's mind, especially if it's affordable and representing middle housing. But in this context, what I'm really questioning is the little attention that's being put to the commercial part of this relative to the special considerations that this zone has been given in our current code. So basically, if the neighborhood is going to absorb issues that come with density, then it should also get some kind of benefit that has to do with the special aspects of this zoning. So thank you for the opportunity to put that out there for kind of background to think about the current project and potentially going forward to hopefully make it a little more defined for future discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners for Ms. Moog? Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Renee. Next, I have Erin Jansen. You hold on here. You should be good to go, Erin.
Hi, my name's Erin Jansen. I live on 3509 Southeast Wake Street. I'm also on the board of the Ardenwald Johnson Creek NDA. And I just want to reiterate a lot of what we've heard tonight. But I think it's really disingenuous the way that we're using 3 stories or 45 feet or lower. I wasn't involved in the conversations regarding when this NMU was drafted, but I've heard that, there were assurances made about not being more than 3 stories. And especially since this is at the top of the hill, this is really going to feel like even more than the 4 stories that it's laid out to be. And I just agree completely that granting these variances, she hasn't met the burden of showing that it's in the public interest to add this 4th story. It seems like what would be in the public interest could be accomplished without requesting any variances, either through some of the things we've heard tonight, which is 3 stories that are 15 feet lofted, but other ways she could do that to not need these variances. I'm pro high density. I used to live on Hawthorne not that long ago. I loved the walkability. I loved the living and feeling of what you needed being around you. I just don't see that is being accomplished or meeting the goals of what was really set out by the community by this zoning of the commercial zone. I also want to just quickly add that the petition that was 49 signatures at the beginning of this, it's up to 168 against this the last time I checked. And I think that the attempt to sugarcoat this plan by talking about the setback on the top floor and the plants and the look how much worse it could be and what we could do here. I really think that is just an attempt to mask what is going on and how it's really just not contributing to the overall community goals that we spent a lot of time developing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for Ms. Jansen? Thank you, Ms. Jansen.
Okay, we have 2 more left. This one is Renelle Coburn. And 1 second here.
Hello.
You should be good to go.
Hi there. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, just want to make sure. First off, I want to let you all know that the...
Oh. I don't know. I'm trying to unmute you, Renelle. Sorry about that.
I did hit unmute before.
Okay, there we go. Now we can hear you. You might want to start over. Sorry about that.
I wanted to let you all know the petition is not at 168. Change.org is kind of strange. Anybody can sign your petition, even if they live across the country and they just like to press buttons. But we're near about 60. We were close to that right around the time the meeting started. In terms of that petition, the 168 number is not accurate. I cut all of the ones that aren't relevant out in what I sent into the city and the Planning Commission. I pretty much agree with everything that has been said here. I really would like a clarification. I'd like to ask the developer or Valerie, what do you see are the actual desirable public benefits? I read the entire proposal, all the documents, and I really couldn't come up with anything that was an actual benefit to us that wasn't, it's a nice building, but that's a benefit to you, right? Green stuff on the roof. If you're living there, that's more a benefit to you than the community. What are the actual community benefits that we would get in exchange as a community for granting variances, or what do you see them to be? Personally, I don't see you living there being one of the benefits either.
We're really not set up for a Q&A during this.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Anyway, that's something I would like to hear about.
Yeah, we'll give Ms. Hunter a chance to present a rebuttal following your testimony.
Gotcha. I'd like to a list of that. I'd also like to know what the rent ranges are for the units. I assume they're market rate units because there's nothing in the documentation about them being low or even mid-range affordable, and they look like luxury level units. And Axle Tree, the cheapest unit's $1,232 for a small studio. So I just don't see what the community gets out of granting any of the variances, as Celestina's mentioned and Chris mentioned and some other people mentioned. And beyond that, I have a really high concern. I'm right on 29th. I'm 3 blocks away. And the 29th Greenway is what makes West Ardenwald the freaking special place it is. And if people are turning right out of the garage and coming down to cut through to be northbound, the 29th Greenway will be gone. People walk down the middle of the street here and love doing it. People here in general love that we don't have sidewalks and that pedestrians and bicycles come first. Children playing in the street comes first. Cars are last on 29th. And the general consensus here is that we want it to stay that way. So there really needs to be a larger transportation study as well that takes into account Monroe. It takes into the traffic that's going to come out of Monroe, the traffic that's going to come out of Hillside. The Tacoma Johnson Creek intersection has already been said that it'll be rated an F with the development that's already happening within 10 or 15 years. I can't remember the exact number, but that it will be failing from the development that's already on deck. So I'm personally a little bewildered about why a more comprehensive background traffic study doesn't seem to have been done that takes the 40% increase in residents that is coming to central Milwaukee and Ardenwald. It's a 40% increase that's coming in the next 10 to 15 years. It's going to be a lot of people. It's going to be a lot of cars. And so I think we need to take a much larger picture into account when we're talking about transportation studies and traffic calming and mitigation issues that protect the really safe, wonderful streets that we already have, that everybody relies on here every day. So thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Coburn?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more question for the commission or Vera, the staff. If the commercial units were eliminated from the building, would it be subject to a different set of zoning codes, or would it not be eligible for the NMU zone?
Through the chair, if this were exclusively a multifamily development, no commercial, then it would be subject to a conditional use review process.
Okay. I heard all that conditional use, but putting all the pieces together. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Ms. Coburn? Thank you, Ms. Coburn.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody's work.
Thank you. All right. And last but not least, we have Paulina. Let's see. I think you should be good to go.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Actually, I am Paulina's husband.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm just using her computer, actually. For the record, my name is Roberto Gutierrez. My residence is 9474 Southeast 32nd Avenue. This is actually pretty much directly across the project here. Kind of have three concerns. We mainly have one main concern around the community engagement process. This is outside of the public meeting notice that was sent a few weeks ago. This is the first kind of opportunity that we've heard this current proposal, this project. So for that reason, we oppose this project in its current form for a variety of reasons. The main reason is around the safety of parking issues that kind of presents around the proposed property. There's already parking challenges that kind of circulate this common area that has been noted several times earlier this evening. Also, the proposed project in its current form, I think, kind of dismisses some of the existing character of the neighborhood. This was also noted earlier by a couple comments before me tonight. And so I'd like to see kind of a larger engagement process that kind of reflects some of the concerns mentioned tonight and attempts to address some of the issues that relate to the NMU zoning requirement and some of the concerns related around the height variances and exceptions noted also earlier tonight. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Chair Massey?
Yes.
There was a comment made in the Q&A where someone asked that staff or someone read a comment that was written and submitted. I think that's probably an appropriate use of that. And I can read that. It's from Mick Johnson or MC Johnson. And this person writes, I would like to submit the following comments to be read by someone else. The analysis included in the preliminary stormwater report is underwhelming and does not address the primary surface and groundwater pollution concerns at this site. A more thorough analysis should address the contamination history at the site. Per Milwaukee Public Works Standards Section 2.001.9, the stormwater report does not indicate that vegetation will be established to minimize erosion in accordance with Chapter 16 of the Municipal Code, Milwaukee Municipal Code. Per Milwaukee Public Works Standards Section 2.0011A4, the stormwater design does not show all subsurface outlets, springs, within project vicinity. As the proposed site is at the top of the slope, the report should include map locations of subsurface outlet springs within project vicinity. As the proposed site, oops, I just read that, didn't I? As the proposed site is at the top of the slope, the report should include map locations of subsurface outlets within 1,000 feet. Sorry about that. Per Milwaukee Public Works Section 2.001111, the stormwater report does not address potential surface water quality concerns related to DEQ registered contaminants known to occur at the site. Per Milwaukee Public Works Standards Section 2.0023, the stormwater report does not address whether or not the project will achieve minimum cover requirements. If the cover requirements are achieved, what soil remediation measures will address DEQ registered contaminants at the site? Last one, per Milwaukee Public Works Standard Section 2.0045, the stormwater report does not address whether or not stormwater infiltration on site is practicable. The report needs to explain why infiltration on the site is not practical. And there was one other comment in here from Denise, who asked, it was a question for Mildred about the diagram, the site plan, saying it wasn't clear that there were 5 spaces in front on 32nd. And what changes would need to be made to accommodate the spaces? But I think that was actually planned in. But anyway, those were the comments that came in on the Q&A. And I responded that I would read them in.
Thank you. Let me confirm with Mary, there are no more members of the public who want to testify. So we had no testimony in support or no neutral testimony.
I have one more point. During the recess, there were 2 emails that had come in since the meeting had started, and I think that Vera sent both of those on to the Planning Commission.
And yes, there are no more raised hands or anyone of the public wanting to comment at this time.
So Vera, do you want to share those emails with me? I'm quite frankly not checking my email account right now.
Sure. There were 2. I think actually just the one, though, relates to this development. And I think Ivan actually submitted in the Q&A portion as well, it looks like. Yeah, at 8:22, Ivan Landau. And so his comment is wondering about the benefit to the neighborhood. Seems like this will bring lots of traffic and lots of people, but offer very little community space. Most of the ground floor is taken up by parking, and the commercial space is so teeny, not sure what could really even go there. He says, I've seen a similar development in downtown Milwaukee by the library, and the commercial spaces are pretty useless. He's not trying to be snarky, but this is really a similar space, and I truly can't see the value to our community. He lives on Filbert and 32nd, so the space very near and dear to me. This is a very difficult development for me to support. I'm so excited for that space to turn into something beautiful and useful, and this does not seem like this just seems like a typical development, plus a sweet penthouse for the owner, packing people in a quaint residential neighborhood without truly keeping in mind what is best for the community. Again, truly curious, what is the benefit to the neighborhood?
Okay, we have all the Q&A and all the emails that have come in recently. Okay. So do the commissioners have any additional, well, let me ask the staff, do they have any additional comments that the staff would like to offer based upon the testimony that we've heard?
I do not. Denny, is there anything that you think we should add?
I don't have any other comments.
Okay, thank you. So do any members of the Planning Commission have any questions of the staff regarding the testimony up to this point?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
So what I was wondering is there's been some comments about off-site frontage improvements that might help mitigate some of the parking problems or mobility problems in the immediate area of the intersection of Olson and 32nd. Is there an option, and maybe this isn't something that we can condition, but is there an option that is available to the applicant to perhaps trade SDC, required SDC funds in exchange for off-site improvements in the vicinity?
I think we'll defer that one to Steve Adams or Dalton if one of those guys want to come back on and respond.
I'll go ahead and speak. It would have to be shown as a benefit to the community. We could talk to the developer about it and enter into a development agreement on what they could do, and we could give them an SDC credit. I have done that on other developments. Part of it too is, the main thing is that the city, primarily through me, but also I would talk to my boss and others to make sure we are all on the same page on it.
Of course, yes. But it is an option.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it might be a better, it's something that sort of needs to be negotiated as opposed to conditioned, I think, just in order to make sure that we are not going into an area of takings. You know, and it would need to be we would need to meet the nexus requirements as well as the proportionality requirements.
Absolutely, and so that's why I was wondering if it was an option. It would definitely need to be discussed with the applicant. I guess kind of my follow-up question to that is, if we were to continue the hearing to the second July meeting instead of the first July meeting, would that give more opportunity for some of these discussions to happen? Maybe for the NDA to hold their regular meeting, maybe for the special meeting and the applicant to attend that. Does it seem like we might want a longer stretch before the next hearing, so that we might have some opportunity to, do some of this additional information gathering or exploring of scenarios to kind of mitigate some of these?
Yeah, I think it depends kind of what the mood of the commission is. If you're inclined to want to find some solutions there, that would probably, a longer time period is probably needed. If the direction was for denial, we could probably come back in 2 weeks with findings for that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hemer.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with that comment from Commissioner Edge, and I don't know if if Mr. Riker and Ms. Gunyon-Riker are still with us. I don't know if Ardenwald is doing their meetings via Zoom. So is there a possibility that that Ardenwald and the applicant would have a chance to meet if we did extend out the date? So I would just like to ask the NDA representative if that's possible, if he's still there. And I guess to make sure the applicant isn't going on vacation or something like that.
Staycation.
Yes, Commissioner Hammer. Yeah, Lisa and I are still here. So, like I said, our regular NDA meetings are now on hiatus until fourth Monday of September, but we have the ability to pull together a board meeting, as needed. So
if it's needed, we will do it. Guaranteed.
So I just want to follow up. Would you only be doing a board meeting, or would you be also inviting other members of the public? And if so, are you going to be able to gather in a place, or are you going to be doing it via teleconferencing like this?
Yeah, for the foreseeable future, we are doing the Zoom teleconferences. Yeah, I guess I'm using the term board meeting. That's usually when we're getting together on a very specific, just one topic, so we're not doing our normal agenda, but we would make it a general invite.
To everybody.
So yes.
The whole community.
Thank you, guys.
Any other questions from the commissioners for the staff? At this point, I'm going to take a little bit of a digression here. Ms. Hunter, are you available?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, my kids are going to bed. Yes,
yeah, I understand. We all have things to take care of. So I guess my question to you is, would you be amenable to meeting with the neighborhood association?
Yes, so just to kind of clarify that, I had reached out to them prior to COVID-19, had all actually sent my renderings at that time. So we are 100% open to meeting with them. I think a little though, after the communication tonight, I think the issue is really not more of the facade, but the 3 stories to the 4 stories. And so I kind of think that actually kind of parlays over to the city. And and just to be quite frank, I mean, as an owner, as a person that has lived in Milwaukee, lives in Milwaukee, drives in Milwaukee every day for the last 9 years, it is really something that the city needs to make a decision on. This is 3 feet. If you guys don't want us as an owner on top of it, that's perfectly fine. Then we build onto the apartments and add that. I mean, it's not a very convoluted situation here. I'm not looking as a developer. I'm looking as an owner and that has an actual interest into the city of Milwaukee. So I'm open to meeting with them. I'd love to discuss with them. Obviously, it's a Zoom meeting, etc. But it's not going to change from anything that we have currently here, if that helps you at all.
Okay, so at this point, I'll go back on script and give the applicant an opportunity to rebut any of the comments from the public testimony. There were a number of questions raised, and I'll give you an opportunity to address those. Either you or your representatives or all of you, or all of you. Yeah.
Mildred, I'm gonna let you start, and then I'll finish it. Okay, hon?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad Valerie clarified that she had tried to reach out to the neighborhood association early on and tried to schedule a meeting on her end. Also sent them drawings sometime back. So we tried to initiate that conversation. But at this point, yeah, I can meet. I'm glad to meet. And then there were some clarification items. Just, I assume you're aware the stormwater report was preliminary. That's all that's required for these land use reviews. And there's a final one that includes all that the items that they were concerned was included. And same with DEQ, we're working with them on the remediation of the property and they're reviewing everything. So we're working closely with them to make sure they approve it. And I wanted to, let's see. So I wanted to show you a couple items just to clarify if I can do the share screen, get it right.
Let me ask you to pause for just a second. Commissioners, I just don't see us getting through this in the next 15 minutes. I would entertain a motion to extend the meeting to the appropriate time, which I believe is 10:15.
We can do that. I was just going to say I'm going to take like 5 minutes, but we can also.
We're going to have more after that. Okay, so I have a motion from Mr. Hemer. I believe it was seconded by Commissioner Roosevelt. All in favor?
I am not making a motion. In fact, I would suggest that we leave the public comment period open and that at our next meeting we have the public comment and then let the applicant.
Yeah, I think that may be true, but I would like to hear from the applicant's response while things are fresh on our minds.
Okay.
So
I'll move that we extend to 10:15.
Okay, thank you.
So that we can accommodate that.
Do I have a second? Evidently not.
Oh.
Motion dies on the floor. I guess we're wrapping up by 10.
Okay.
Go, Mildred.
Do you want me to go ahead and talk real quick then?
Yep.
Okay. So see if I can do the screen share. Okay, it doesn't let me do the screen share for some reason.
As she's figuring that out, let me just.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. Sorry. So this is just to clarify the type 3 variance. We've heard a number of people regarding the discretionary that we don't meet all of these 4 requirements. We don't have to. We need to meet one or more. We were trying to meet all of them. We'd love to meet all of them, but we are not required to meet all of them. It's one or more of the following. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then I wanted to quickly show you the street improvements because these weren't available at the time. The city is still determining all of the ins and outs of this, but this is Valerie's doing a dedication. She's giving up some of the property so that there's an extended sidewalk. planter, and I'm going to show you a profile real quick so that you can see this is 32nd. So you have sidewalk and the landscape.
Mildred, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It says on my end I'm sharing.
It's paused on the type 3 variances.
But it's okay. Just keep moving forward because we have, there you go.
Okay, so here's the section, 32nd, sidewalk, landscape, parking, travel lane. So I just wanted to show you on both 32nd and Olson that is being, the width that's being given up, that's dedicating the city is providing for parking on both sides. And then this is just to reiterate what we're trying to do as far as the response to the height.
Okay.
And so mitigation for the height, we're setting back the north 16 feet, all four sides on the fourth floor. The parapet is a 30-inch tall parapet so that it's providing more privacy instead of an open rail system, and then with the additional landscape. The sloped roof, that was our idea of responding to the residential. We need to go flat to keep us under the 45 feet. That's, fine. And then I know there was some about the benefit of having the owner there, but we really feel like they will keep an eye on the project. It'll keep an eye on the building. She's very invested in the community. She's naming the building after one of her kids. She wants to keep it long-term, and she's been very, very involved with the design process, which to me shows that she really cares about the project. And then about the parking, just so that you know, we are maximizing the stalls. We're providing bike parking on the street and inside. The owner's providing all tenants who don't drive transit passes for free. And then, we're providing the street lights for safety and the building mounted lighting. And then regarding the loft idea, that's not the idea to show what we can do that, but the idea is that we could actually, if we did the 45 feet in the loft idea, we could cram more people in the building and not be required to provide more parking spaces. So to us, that's not really a win. Yeah, she could have more renters paying rent, and the city wouldn't require more parking as long as each unit's under a certain size, but that's not desirable. We'd rather have a single family unit on the top. So I'll stop there for you.
Okay.
Very succinctly, please.
Very quick. So just to conclude, I'm the developer, but I'm also the owner. I also have driven the street for over 9 years. My kids go to St. John the Baptist. This is not a developer view. This is actually, we want to move closer to our school, closer to our community that we every day commit to. And so as you guys look into this, if you choose not to do the 4 stories, it's still the same option. And even from the neighborhood, we are looking at the best optimistic view that we can do to actually build this community and build this building so that it actually is a benefit and not just another residential multifamily situation. So as you guys look at this, we're asking for 3 feet. If you don't want to give it to us, we understand, and we're going to abide by your rules. But you have an opportunity for an owner to sit at the top of it and actually hear about everything from this building going forward. We're building it for safety. We're building the sidewalks. We want everything because my kids, I have 3 young kids that go in this community and we're in there every day. We live in Happy Valley right now and we want to move to Milwaukee. So as you look into this and you make a decision, we're obviously hitting all the guidelines. We can obviously build out these walls to be even more than they are, and we're choosing not to. And so as you sit in your position as a city council or as a neighborhood association, you need to really look at the situation and see how are we coming about this and what are we really trying to obtain. We want to be a part of the community, and my family wants to be a part of the community. As you sit on this video tonight, you see my kids come up and give me a kiss, even though I'm in a meeting right now. That's what's important to us. So It's just one thing I want you to know. I can go over all the other jurisdictions, all the other things that are important, or the city passes and everything, but what's most important to me is family, and that's what you're going to get with me. So I just wanted to let you know that, and know that we give a lot to me. And if you reach out and look at what we do as a family and what we do to our parish and everything like that in St. Paul, we're not just a building. So when you say we're just a building, it's actually hurtful to me because I'm not just a building. I have many buildings around Portland and Clackamas and the other areas. I choose not to live in them. I choose to want to build a home on top of Milwaukee and the building that I'm building for my daughter, Sophia Patricia Fodak, who's autistic. So I just want to let you know that my heart and my soul is in this. And I appreciate you guys all for taking the time tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter.
Thank you.
So at this point, yes, Commissioner Edge.
So, I mean, we may want a few extra minutes because I think that we want to give some direction to staff and possibly, ask at least a couple questions of the applicant so that we can figure out if we're scheduling this for the first July meeting or the second July meeting as the date's starting to return to continue the hearing.
Do I hear a motion?
I move that we extend the meeting to no later than 10:10.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. 10. Okay. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Just making you more efficient, that's all.
Yeah, like we didn't see that one coming. So I guess my question at this point is, do we want to close the public testimony or not?
No.
Okay. I thought that would be the answer. So now for discussion by the commissioners, who's first?
What I was hoping is that I could ask a couple questions of the applicant, and then we could decide, whether we're targeting the first July meeting or the second July meeting, and then if anyone else has other questions, we can try to wrap those up and then get the meeting continued and wrap up tonight.
Okay, go ahead.
So I really just have a couple questions, and that is, would you be willing to discuss with the city possibly trading systems development charge credits in exchange for maybe some off-site frontage improvements if the community discussions brought up that was a priority and that there was maybe an opportunity there to maybe trade some of those financial outlays for actual improvements? Is that a discussion that you'd be willing to have with staff, and would it be valuable to have a couple extra weeks to have those discussions?
Can you elaborate? Are you saying that you'd give SDC credits in return for street improvements that she's not already proposing, like further down Olson or something?
Yeah, some of the neighbors have brought up the possibility of extending sidewalks or other frontage improvements along frontage that is not adjacent to your property. And so in order to do that, it would have to be like, the city would have to authorize, any off-site improvements. But there is a history of allowing such off-site improvements to occur in exchange for SDC credit.
Well, I think I have to let Valerie respond, but I do want to point out, if they're meeting the city's design goals, I believe a number of them may have to provide dedications, which means they'll have to give up some property frontage. Dalton, can you respond to that?
Yes. I'm not. It's frontage improvements are quite expensive, and so I think it's definitely encouraged to investigate it. I'm not sure, strictly speaking, about the SDC credits available at this, as in the SDCs that are to be paid by this development, if it would result in significant frontage expansion, because it is quite expensive. Yeah. As well as right, needing the dedication. I can't remember. I can look up on city maps real quick about how much, if there's additional dedication needed from adjacent properties on Olson to make that happen.
Let me just cut in. Hold on. Let me just cut in right there. Obviously, as a developer, I'm completely negotiable. But as all of you guys know, there's dedications, there's additional expenses. Everything has to be negotiated to where it's not going to be additionally out of the pocket, right? I'm fine with figuring out a way to subsidize this and taking an SDC here, but we've got to be real at the same time. If you want those improvements, you're going to have to subsidize me, right? And I'm just being honest and straightforward with you guys. I have no problem with creating and moving forward with improvements in the neighborhood, but I can't take this out of pocket because already my development and with the SDCs and everything that comes about from it is actually really putting me at an amount that's going to be quite substantial. I would
and
love
that's
to work with,
exactly. That was exactly my point. Is that thank you. That was exactly my point. Is that the SDCs, you're already expected to outlay some SDCs, and if we were to funnel those into projects instead, that would provide that off-site community benefit that some people are raising. It sounds like you're willing to at least have that discussion with city staff, and that was really my question.
anytime I can get it to the area instead of the city, I'm all for it.
And then my last question for you is, would you be willing to provide the parking utilization study at our next hearing?
Say that again. I couldn't hear you correctly.
There's a staff noted in the report that a parking utilization study was not provided, and I was wondering if you could provide that at the next hearing to enter into the record.
Can we ask John to respond about timeline that might be required for that?
Would the late July meeting be enough time?
John, can you address
is
that?
that a requirement or is that an extra condition?
Vera, can you respond to that?
No, is that a requirement or is that a condition?
It's a requirement.
Yeah, it's part of because part of the approval criteria for the reduction in parking is to be able to show that you're not going to have an adverse impact on existing on-street parking. So the parking utilization study is a way to be able to show that because you're demonstrating what the on-street parking situation is now at various times of day. I'm sure Mr. might work, but that's the idea. Yeah.
Dalton, have we not already, and Mildred, have we not already, I thought that was part of our TIS.
I wanted John to.
Well, it's pretty unrealistic to do an on-street parking study with the businesses being closed. So we've got an issue about trying to conduct one now.
Although realistically, there's no on-street parking allowed at all on 32nd or on Olson in front of the property. So any new on-street we add, which is 6 to 7 new parking spots when we do the frontage, that is more than the 4 short for our appeal or our adjustment request. Right?
We're certainly willing to have discussions with city staff about working out some kind of a methodology by which we can satisfy desire for additional information about parking.
Excellent. I have no further questions.
Thank you. So Denny, let me ask you a question. I think that I see, 2 different paths going here. One is for the developer to have some more engagement with the neighborhood and the city. So your thoughts on a way forward?
I think it might be worth just testing among the commissioners if you are all interested in exploring those options more, or which means, are you interested in exploring this 4th floor option more? Or, is it a non-starter? The only one that has sort of given some indication of support for this, and the questioning is Commissioner Edge at this point, and everybody else has been much more quiet about it.
Well, we were listening to everybody else. So let me ask Commissioner Hamer, do you think that we have room for discussion, or are you inclined to approve or disapprove tonight or at the next meeting?
I am disappointed at the applicants' repeated remarks that they kept trying to get a hold of the neighborhood. It doesn't sound like that they want to meet with the neighborhood. My preference would be is that they would meet with the neighborhood, maybe hash some of this out, and then come back to us later. That would be my preference.
Okay. Commissioner Loosevelt?
I don't see a path forward for the project as it's outlined today, and I would say that the only opportunity we have here is further discussion with the community, coming back with some alternative designs, and seriously reconsidering the fourth floor. I don't see an approval path with the current design as it stands, and I'm standing with the community on this one. I think I'm hearing them clearly.
Commissioner Burns?
I think Commissioner Loosevelt summarized it very succinctly, and I agree with that, hearing the community today, I don't think there's a path for approval as is, and more discussion is needed.
Commissioner Hart?
You did.
Still muted. There you go.
If I hit it, I think at the same time as somebody else's, it like crosses wires. I just will echo what Commissioner Burns just said is, I think, and it seems like the consensus, there just needs to be more discussion with the community, and not really a path forward today.
I will say that I also do not see a path forward based upon the current proposal. And, I hope something can come of this initial discussion, but I think that there's still just a lot of issues here. And I hope something can come out of it, but I think that this is a tough one.
Chair Macy?
Yes.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with what you just said. I do want to say that the presentation from the owner and from the architect today has been very helpful. The additional diagrams and documentation, I would urge you to use all of the, this community is vocal. That's probably why you love Milwaukee. It's probably why you want to be here and stay here and raise your family here. And these people will support you if you continue to listen to them and involve them in the development of this design. So this is, and in my mind, if there's a silver lining, it's that these people really care about your building and this site. So it's an asset.
Okay, so I have a question real quick, because I've sat on some boards. I've also sat on some committees. I believe that you need to follow suit with the normal guidelines, correct? So you need to shut down public. I mean, don't you have a guideline to follow, and then you guys need to make a decision, right? Well, I mean, just looking at your protection on this meeting and this meeting, you need to be able to shut down the public comments. Then you do your off. You need to allow the owner to speak, and then you guys get to make a decision. Don't you want to do it correctly, just so we don't have any issues going forward?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But let's make sure we do that before we get into this discussion that all of you guys are getting into. You really need to shut down the public comment. You need to have final comments, and then you guys can all do this talk.
The commission was deciding whether or not there was going to be new evidence that would be presented. So this round of deliberation was sort of a preliminary round to determine whether or not they wanted to take any additional evidence. What I was hearing is that they have a number of questions, would like additional information, and when that additional information comes back, the hearing would continue to be open. And
okay, I understand that, but I've sat on city council before, and you need to close the public comments. You need to do the final discussion between the applicant, and then you guys get to have your discussion. Because right now you're leaving it open for people to come in and after. And I'm just being straightforward and honest with you guys. Is as a city commission, we need to do this appropriate so all parties have the right.
Yeah, Valerie,
the right.
Valerie, we know what we're doing. This.
Okay.
The commission is. I think they are choosing to keep the record open, and they're giving us some direction as to what to explore, what they would like back in the record. They haven't closed the record and haven't gone into full deliberation.
Versus denying the project outright. So it's probably the better option.
No, I understand, but I think you need to close for you. From my understanding, we immediately moved into where the public can still come in and have a saying. Is that correct? Or am I incorrect? Because I never saw that was closed, or did we move on any jurisdiction on that?
We did not close the public testimony.
Let me lay out in here.
Before you, Denny, before you get going.
You guys are all talking about moving into a different direction. So don't we have to close the public testimony first?
No.
Are we sure?
I move we extend to 10:15.
Yeah, thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. At this point, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the hearing to a date certain of July 28th for file VR-2019-013.
Can I ask?
Second.
Yeah. Before we, we have a motion on the floor, but I think we still need to give some guidance about the expectations between then and now. Would you agree, Denny?
Yes.
Could I? Is there a second to that motion?
I've seconded the motion for the July 28th meeting. I think we need to also hear a motion for extending the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we have a consensus on keeping the public record open and continuing. But I think that we need to give some direction to the city staff and the applicant about the expectations about what might happen between then and now. So, Danny, from my perspective, I think that we would encourage a meeting or with the Neighborhood District Association. And what else do you think might be useful to occur between then and now? Between the next meeting and now? No, I'm sorry, the late July meeting and now.
Denny, you're on mute.
I think what the commission needs is a revised proposal of some sort that results from this neighborhood meeting.
Options.
And that would be and then that proposal would be distributed. I think the timeline is going to be really tight to have that happen, but it means we need to move relatively quickly on that. Vera, do you have any thoughts on this? I just wanted to. I seem to have been talking a lot in the last hour.
No, you're the planning director, Denny. You're supposed to. No, I mean, I think that makes sense. That if the proponent can set up, it looks like from what I'm seeing in the chat that the NDA is perfectly happy to meet, with Ms. Hunter and talk about that. I think we can talk about it on, in-house to see if there is some way to address the parking utilization idea, trying to really capture what's happening on Olson Street. We'll have to see if there's a methodology for that, but I think coming back with something that results from additional discussions based on all of these comments, I think is a great idea, and more time to review. I mean, there was a lot of material presented tonight by the applicant that, everyone's seeing for the first time. So I think some more time to review all of that will be really helpful for everyone as well.
I have a question. Mr. Macy. Let's say we just come back and not even come in with the review and we just go under the guidelines.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Let's just say we come back and we go under the review without having to do a land use, and then no one has a say. What's the point of that when we've already sat and we've submitted our documentation to NDA? I'm just laying it out to all of you guys. You want to play this game right now, yet the NDAs have the documentation, and you guys want to look at the traffic study, right? Why don't we look at the traffic study? Instead, you guys are coming back and saying, no, this project's not going to work, or the 4 stories not going to work, when we can still go under, we can get rid of the 4-story and just go with the 3 stories. It's interesting that you guys are so worried about the neighborhood association instead of actually saying, hey, developer, we really think about you and your situation and what you want to accomplish too. You know what I mean? I just want to say it seems very one way. And you're laughing, Burns, but I'm just being straightforward with you guys. You're probably not used to it. But I'm being realistic. You all want to come about me right now, and I can come in right under your jurisdiction. I can do exactly what you want. I'm at my 3 stories. I'm with all my apartments, and I can fly through. I'm trying to do the right thing. Tell you, I'm on the top as an owner, and yet I don't feel like any of you are sitting on my seat and giving one iota about an owner giving a crap. And I want to say, from someone that wants to move to Milwaukee, I'm tired of this game. Because I do a lot of development. I want you guys to care for me as much as you care about your neighborhood association. Because you know what? None of them have been there as long as I have. I went through your neighborhood for 9 years driving my kids to that school. I've also sold real estate for over 20 years in Milwaukee, and I've cared more about your area than probably most of you. You tell me who's sitting there has been there for 20 years. One of you raised your hand.
We extend to 10:15.
I've been with Milwaukee for 20 years.
Chair Macy,
Yes.
I think we need to mute.
Sounds good, Roosevelt. You can't handle it.
I move we extend to 10:20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I just want to say that I apologize as far as my comments earlier. This is my first meeting, and so I don't by any means want to imply that I'm against any developers or against or with any which way. I think that this is just, we're trying to hear from the neighbor, the community, and navigate a path forward. And that just seems kind of challenging. I do hear what you're saying. I feel for you. I know it's very, very clear that you love this community. It's very clear that you guys have put a lot of time and effort and thought and planning into every single detail of all of this. So I don't think that there's any doubt about how much you guys care and how much love has been put into this project. And I also didn't get the impression from the community. I think most community members are very happy to have development and to build on our community. And I think that there's just some concerns. It seems like with the parking variance, it seems like with the 3rd floor versus the 4th floor. So, and that's tough to navigate because we're all just in a time right now that's a little unique as far as not being able to really see with a business being closed right there. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things to factor in, but I think that a lot of the community really supports and appreciates how much time and effort has been put into planning or trying to build and develop our community. So I thank you for all of your efforts. Like, I can't hear you.
We need to wrap up. We've got 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was some direction that we encouraged the applicant to resubmit a proposal based upon additional outreach to the neighborhood association. We can't make that happen, but we would encourage it. Is that the direction that we need?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Traffic study.
Okay. Complete the traffic study to the greatest extent possible. Anything else on the? Okay.
That was the parking analysis, not the traffic study, right?
Right.
You're correct. Yeah.
I stand corrected. Thank you, Commissioner Edge.
Yeah.
We're also missing daily traffic counts from the traffic study.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And is there anything further on stormwater, or is that forthcoming?
That should be forthcoming in the future part of the development review, right?
Yeah, the stormwater comes into play with the submittal of improvements that are required to meet our stormwater requirements at that time.
That building permit.
Okay.
And Commissioner Edge, it just seems like from this, or like initial conversations, that in terms of trading SDC for other improvements, it maybe is not the most viable path. So
it may not be viable, but if they're having conversations with staff, that might be something they can cover anyway. And I think it's just worth exploring just as a question.
Right.
But I tend to agree. Some frontage improvements are expensive.
Yep. I would encourage the applicant to focus more on their own.
Okay.
Site.
The chair will entertain a motion to continue this proposal until.
Did we already do that?
Right, they've done that, haven't we? Sorry.
I think you just need to move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, we don't have any time. So, any other business? Okay, future forecast?
This.
That's what I kind of thought. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Good luck, Commissioner Burns.
Good luck.
Miss you all.
It's been great working with you.
Thank you.